Gamecock fans, shake your tail feathers. By God, you've earned it. Wow. After a first half that honestly looked like it could go either way, that I guarantee you a lot of Gamecock fans were pleasantly surprised where you found yourself, tied 20-20 at halftime with the number 11 team in the country. You just shut them down for the entire second half, and it was a thing of beauty. Final score, 44-20 and $250,000 that the University of South Carolina has to pay in fines for what they did. An absolutely incredible night for the South Carolina Gamecocks. Cole, we're going to talk about that Clemson blunder in the next segment. We talk about winners first on this show, baby. Winners get precedence here, and South Carolina, by God, showed us something.
They showed us a lot, man. And when you just said that final score, like I even had to double take a minute. Like if you would have said on Friday as we were leading into that game and talking about it all week last week, say it again. One more time.
44-20.
44-20. If you and I would have said that score to each other on Thursday or Friday, it just sounds a lot worse than it was. And, you know, you watched it. Yeah. It kind of – Carolina blew it out late in the game. But, boy, what a dominant performance. Doesn't this Diesel feel so good for the Gamecock fans out there that the past few weeks have gone through so close, and now they finally get it done.
Yeah, and it kind of felt like we were heading for another LSU scenario, right? It kind of felt like, all right, South Carolina scored early. You came out jacked up, hair on fire, feeling great about yourselves, and then A&M figured something out. They calmed everything down. They started scoring points in that second quarter, and they got it back to a tie ball game at halftime. I guarantee you, again, a lot of South Carolina fans were feeling real good about where you were at the time, but also you looked at the way you gave up a bunch of unanswered points to get it back to 20-20, and then you just busted it wide open in the second half. Like it felt like you were watching a fight in one of the Rocky movies, right? Where Rocky's delivering body blow, boom, uppercut. It was over. It was over for Texas A&M after that. 530 total yards of offense to just 350 yards for the Texas A&M Aggies. Just a beautiful thing, Cole. Just a beautiful thing to watch what South Carolina was able to do. Play complementary football, not turn the ball over. It's like they forgot all of those things that they were doing that cost them games earlier in the season. You know, stupid penalties, bad situational football, defense being really good, but the offense being completely inept. The whole team came out and played about as perfect a game as they could.
No, you're right. And I'll tell you this, man. I thought about this late Saturday night and thought about it several times again today. I'll tell you, Diesel, what I have come to believe is a very impressive trademark of Shane Beamer. They really play well in the second half. I remember back, and I can think of about 4 games, big wins, where Shane Beamer's team in the second half, and 2 of them this year, right? Kentucky, obviously Oklahoma was a weird game where the offense wasn't asked to do much. Saturday night, but I also think back, Diesel, to the Clemson game 2 years ago where Shane Beamer and South Carolina beat Clemson. And I remember sitting there that day watching the game. They did a halftime interview with Shane Beamer. Clemson was up. They went up 14-0 to start that game, if you remember right. Shane Beamer looked at the camera at halftime of that game and said, we're going to come out in the second half and we're going to win the ball game. And I thought right there, like, wow, that's bold, right? Bold strategy to say that. But now we've seen it. So one of the trademarks that I'm beginning to recognize and appreciate, whatever Shane Beamer's saying at halftime is working, because this team in the second half, when they're playing their best football, they're putting teams away, Diesel. And I think that's super impressive, especially in the SEC.
Yeah, it is. And I was, what was that stat that Smitty gave us on Friday? Something like 30% of South Carolina's drives end in a 3-and-out, which put them in the bottom like 15 in FBS football. Well, that stat has certainly changed after this weekend, Cole, but I watched them put together multiple long sustained drives. They had an 11-play drive for 75 yards and a touchdown. They had a 10-play drive for 68 yards and a field goal. Of course, they were popping big plays left and right throughout that game, right? And there was a couple of touchdown drives that were only 3-play drives, 50-yard drives. But I'm really proud of a team's ability to be able to hit in multiple ways. Sure, you can hit that 50-yard touchdown pass, and that's great. You love to have those. But you also love to be able to dominate the time of possession, dominate the line of scrimmage, put together 8, 9, 10, 11-play drives that end in points every time. Certainly that 10-play drive, you'd love to have a touchdown there, but you'll take points on any drive that you can get against Texas A&M. So that's not something we've seen a lot of from South Carolina this year.
It's not, but I'll tell you this, man. When you talk about winning football games, Diesel, in the SEC, how impressive was what they did on the ground? Like, they completely dominated on the ground in the trenches at the line of scrimmage. It wasn't even like a contest in terms of who the most physical team was. And Shane Beamer talked about that last week. I remember him having quotes on, we've got to be the more physical team. Diesel, not only were they more physical, they ran the football. And Rocket Sanders, like, coming out party, he looked like the best running back in the SEC. When you can run the ball like that, I'll pick you every single time. I'll tell you, man, that's one of the areas on Saturday watching that game that impressed me the most was just South Carolina's ability to flat run the football down their throat.
The saddest thing about this game, Cole, is that we're just now seeing Rocket Sanders really emerge for this team. Now, there's only 4 games to go. He's a senior. I don't know if he's got any eligibility after this season or not, but you may be losing him at the end of the season. Somebody who's more adept with the roster can tell me off the top of your head if you know. But you start getting these impressive performances out of Rocket at the last third of the season. You wish you could have had these earlier, because if you did, you have a much better chance of winning at least one, if not both, of the LSU Alabama games, and then you're sitting real pretty.
And that's the thing about it, man. Like, you can look at it as, yeah, what if, but also, Diesel, what if he's just now getting hot? What if they're able to reel off their next 4 wins, and all of a sudden they're a 3-loss team?
You're 9-3 team.
That's what I'm saying. With a playoff conversation.
Outside chance.
Yeah. So, look, there's so much to get into, but you know me. I'm no Gamecock fan, but boy, do I give credit where credit's due, and I give them a ton of credit. I watched more of that game over the weekend after getting back home Saturday night and watching more and more of it, Diesel. I'll tell you this, I was super impressed. I thought they coached so well. The players were motivated, and we're going to talk to Jack Veltri about it at 5:20. Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday night. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
It was insane, the sound coming out of that stadium. Again, I was just watching on TV, so I couldn't get the full brunt of that sound, but I guarantee you were hearing it from miles around outside of that venue. I mean, what a phenomenal showing for that fan base. When they rushed the field, Cole, the entire field was covered. There was not a square inch of grass cleared up there. Good thing is the grounds crew has a couple of weeks now, because they're probably going to have to cut out a lot of those bushes and put in some new hedges, because you Gamecock fans, you took a little bit of the hedges out yourself.
It's fantastic though, man. Yeah. Like you'll take it, right? And Mike says place was wild. I was there. If you were there, let us know. 71307 keyword fan. I know a lot of our Tolos told us last week they were going, Diesel.
Yeah.
It looked like, and again, I was there for the LSU game, but it was a new game. It's a lot different. It's a lot different night. What a night it was.
SEC games at night are just different, man. They hit different. And it's one of those things, Cole, where I wish these conferences were not so beholden to the TV networks telling them when to kick off, so that they can spread their inventory out over the course of the day. If not, I'd be playing every damn day game I could at night. Why in the hell would you ever play a day game?
So I have 3 things that I was most impressed by, but I want to get to a few texts. The text line, it's hot right now, 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Diesel's texter says it looked like Sellers had grease on him. Couldn't even dream of getting a sack. That's a really good way to put it, 803. You're right. He was greasy, but he was also lightning. So he was grease lightning on Saturday night. Texter says 0 sacks on Lenoris. Another texter from the 344, that was as healthy as I've seen Rocket and Sellers look all year. Sellers even ran over a DB, 0 sacks.
Sellers had 100 yards rushing himself.
100 yards and a touchdown.
That is so dangerous when you've got a quarterback, number one, that has speed and elusiveness, but also size and can get out. Like, you've seen little quarterbacks, small, slight guys be able to just be quicker than big defensive linemen and be quicker than linebackers who are usually, big dudes. But to see a guy with Lenore Sellers' size, weight, and stature be able to do what he did, I mean, that's vision. That's understanding where the defense is coming from. That's being patient and poised.
He doesn't look like a quarterback.
No.
His size.
No.
I mean, you see him running, it's like, good God. 344 says that's why A&M shouldn't have yell practice on the State House saying they're going to roll the red carpet out for the defensive line. Texter from the 430 Diesel says, I texted in last Thursday, 31-20. My bad. I underestimated the Gamecocks. Also, Cade must have been thinking about those nightmares I told you all about. We'll get to that. Texter says there was a small earthquake in Columbia, baby, and we can fix the rule where the fine goes to or can we fix the rule where the fine goes to the opposing team?
That might be, if that could get out to all fans, please tell a fellow Gamecock fan, tell a fellow Tiger fan, tell a fellow this fan, whatever fan it is. When you rush the field or rush the court and your team gets fined for that, it doesn't just go to the conference office and they get to use it on marketing. No. That is a penalty you pay to the opposing team. I guess because you probably just put their players at risk by rushing the field and crowding in around them. But South Carolina, you just paid Texas A&M $250,000 to rush the field. Next time it's $500K.
Yeah.
So think about that.
That's a dumb rule, isn't it?
Yeah. In a couple of weeks, you're going to be hosting Missouri, now beating Missouri at 4:00. It's not going to be a field rush worthy win if you get it done. And, then you're on the road at Vanderbilt, on the road at Clemson. So you only have one more chance really to rush the field. Don't do it.
So
don't do it. And also it rolls over to other sports too.
It does.
The first court, it was a court storming in basketball. You got fined $100K for that. Then you got fined $250K for this. You'll get fined $500K the next time. That's why you should stop rushing the field and storming the court.
So we've got our daily Dewey, but I first, Diesel, want to get to my 3 most impressive factors of what I saw Saturday night. Number one, I've said it already, South Carolina dominated the line of scrimmage. Both sides of the ball. We knew their defensive line was really good. I thought the offensive line was better. Again, this offensive line, we've kind of seen improvement week after week. They've still got, obviously, a ton to improve on, but they didn't play bad. Number two, I really like Diesel how in the second half, the defense, again, Clayton White, fantastic. I like how the defense adjusted to A&M's passing game. They locked up in the second half, man. They locked them up. It was a fantastic outing by the defense for South Carolina, especially in the second half. And then 3, you and I talked about it, the penalties. South Carolina had, 3 penalties?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you win. So when you say, Diesel, you have a strong run game, a quarterback who doesn't turn the ball over, an elite defense, guess what that is? That's a formula to win in the SEC.
Juxtapose that. We're not getting to it yet in this segment. Juxtapose the limited number of times that South Carolina was penalized in that game with how many times Clemson was penalized for dumb stuff, like hits out of bounds. There's multiple of those penalties in that game. That's how you lose football games. That's how you feel like you just – there's something off. There's something wrong about the way you're playing. South Carolina has experienced that in weeks past, but Saturday night it was absolutely perfect. And Gamecock fans revel in this. You deserve this.
Yep.
But make this the standard of how you want to feel. Not it's okay if we feel this once or twice a year. Outside of that, it is what it is. No, make this the standard.
Well, this is the best South Carolina team I've seen in quite some time. It really is. And by the way, Tolos, if you're not on the stream, the stream's lighting up right now. It's a good conversation to be had. You can join on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's where you can watch the show. You're right, Diesel. South Carolina fans should be ecstatic. They should be absolutely ecstatic because they saw their team grow up on Saturday night. They saw Lenora Sellers grow up, right? If only Diesel, and I mean if only, they could have got those other 2 wins. You're talking about a 7-1 team.
Yeah.
You're talking about a top 10 team in the country who's an automatic lock for the college football playoff as of right now. Shane Beamer, in my mind, deserves a ton of credit for the year they had, and they just absolutely played their butts off on Saturday.
Does Dowell Loggins get a contract extension?
No, I mean,
you're not going to go that far yet.
Not yet. Not yet. But look, their defense, Clayton White should. Like Clayton White.
Yeah. Throw whatever he needs. Whatever he asks for.
Oh, my God.
Give it to him.
Hey,
keep him in Columbia as long as you can.
You know, what's really interesting, if you watch the game, if you look at the box score here, Diesel, Marcel Reed of A&M, he didn't have a bad game.
No.
However, I'll tell you what he didn't do. He didn't have an opportunity to change the game. I think he threw, without looking, I think he threw 10 incomplete passes the entire night. And
yeah, he was 18 for 28.
Okay, so not a bad night.
For 206 yards.
However, the Gamecocks contained him. They did not allow the big plays. Clayton White's the truth. We've known that. And what he continues to do, man, like this is a really, really good defense that I've said elite. I mean, you can call it what you want to call it here, but I have not seen a South Carolina team that's this complete in a long, long time. And this team, in my mind, truly grew up. And when you look at the rest of the games they play in 2024, they should be in every single one of them, if not win every single one of them. They really should.
Yeah.
Dewey wants to chime in. This could be interesting, Diesel. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. That's the way you can get in touch with the show.
The question is, which Dewey are we getting today? Are we getting Shane Beamer forever, or are we getting Shane Beamer should be fired? Because I'm pretty sure we've had both of those from Dewey just in the past couple of days.
All right, which one we got today, Dewey? What's up, man?
Well, first of all, y'all should be eating crow. y'all said that they were only win 3 games this year. And Shane Beamer is going to be there forever. He's going to win SEC Coach of the Year.
To be fair, Dewey, I said they would win 5 games this year.
The playoffs.
You're going to make the playoff.
Wow.
And they're going to make the playoffs.
Dewey, I want to hear what you have to say about this. Mike Main on YouTube says, Dewey needs to be fired.
No, I was right all along. They had 2 bad. Well, Ole Miss game doesn't count.
Yeah, it does.
Old Dominion doesn't count.
Yeah, it does.
And Alabama, they should have won that game. And I'm still recovering my TV from that.
Dewey says you got to eat the crow.
Listen to it on the radio.
Thanks for the call, Dewey. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. Eating crow, says Dewey. Oh, that's good.
I'll poach it. I'll cover it in some barbecue sauce and I'll eat it all day, Cole. I said that South Carolina would win 5 games this season. That was my preseason prediction. So far, Dewey, I'm still right. They won 5 games.
Back. I think I said 6.
You said 6?
I think I have to
go
back
to score points.
No. I have to go back and look. I need a look. I really do need a look because I think I said 6. But I'll tell you what, man, it was fan-freaking-tastic.
JD says, don't take away our ODU win, Dewey. We need that for bowl eligibility.
True.
Think about it. South Carolina will go to a bowl game this year at the very least. You're going to beat the tar out of Wofford.
Yeah.
And even there's no way you go 0-3 against Vandy, Missouri, Clemson. No. Absolutely no way. I think we were looking at this last week, Cole. We were thinking best case, worst case. Best case was 3-1. Mm-hmm. Worst case was 1-3.
Yeah.
Down the stretch, I don't see there's any way that I think there's any way that South Carolina misses a bowl game. They're gonna. It's so hard to pick the Vandy game because Vandy's just charmed this year and it's at their place. You're gonna beat Missouri. I have a feeling you're gonna beat Clemson.
Texter says, this is Mike Main. He says Clemson should be on alert. Texter from the 203. The thing I learned from Saturday night, whoever thought Cade was a Heisman candidate was an absolute moron, maybe against bad competition. But Homie is let me click on the text. Homie is bad against good teams, says the Texter. 304 says, how are my Gamecocks not ranked? We're with you. We think they should be as well.
It's absurd for them to have so many fewer votes than Missouri, who's got like 30 or 40 more votes than them in the rankings.
4-3-0. Well, the ACC don't have that rule, so all Gamecock fans can meet at the poll after the easy win over Clemson, says Perk. I like it. I like the trash talk there, Perk. Texter says Dowell Loggins called a good game. He didn't take his foot off the gas, says the texter from the 977. 2-3-0. Guys who are acting like A&M or LSU is any good, or Alabama for that matter. A lot to get into. Some texters already getting in on the Clemson conversation, which is where we're going next. We know South Carolina won, Clemson lost. It's a great weekend for a lot of people in the Southeast. So we'll take a break. We'll get into Clemson. I have some thoughts. Diesel does as well. What an embarrassment you saw Saturday in Death Valley. Your thoughts next.
Just told the guys I'm going to show up tomorrow. I'll be at the facility from 12 to 7 tomorrow, getting my body right, watching film, getting treatment, getting my recovery run. Then I'll show up on Monday and kick Monday's ass. Show up on Tuesday, kick Tuesday's ass. Show up on Wednesday, kick Wednesday's ass. And then carry that forward and go be the best we can next Saturday.
Wow. What a substance-filled quote, Cade. You're going to be at the facility from 12 to 7. Well, that's going to fix everything. That's going to fix
paid the big bucks.
Everything. Thank you for letting us know, we're your supervisor, what time you're going to be at the facility tomorrow. I'll be there from 12 to 7, and then we're going to go out there and we're going to try our listen, I tweeted back at Grayson Mann, who, by the way, we're going to have on in 1 hour from now, tigernet.com. David Hood had a doctor's appointment, so Grayson Mann pinch hitting. Diesel, we're going to get into Clemson, but I tweeted back at that video that Grayson Mann put out at Gray_Man21. That's the most substanceless quote I have ever heard in my entire life. They should be ashamed. It was pathetic. Yep. And then to get up there after the game and say, I'm going to be there from 12 to 7. Nobody cares what time you're going to be at the facility, Cade. You sucked.
This is what happens, Cole, when we professionalize college sports. Right? Well, I'm going to be here when I'm contractually obligated to be here. I'm going to be here just long enough.
We don't care.
Cade, what you're supposed to say is, I vow I'm going to be the first one there and the last one to leave every day until we get this right. First one to leave.
Well,
first one in the building, last one to leave. I don't give a rip about 12 to 7, noon to 7. Great. You're going to show up and do what you're supposed to do as a player on this team. No. I'm going to show up and do more than what I'm supposed to do because it means that much to me.
Yeah, but my issue is Cade's already told us that what we saw was fixed. My issue is what we saw the last 6 games, we were told they're good. We were sold a lie from the Clemson media. We were sold a lie from the Clemson fans. And we were sold a lie that this Clemson team was any different. We have asked that exact question, Diesel, on this show to Clemson media. David Hood's a very fair reporter. David Hood understands it. He doesn't. I don't consider David Hood in this conversation or Grayson from TigerNet. Those both do a great job. But when you talk to the Don Muntons of the world and all you hear is flowers and rainbows and everything's fine. They're scoring 140 points. You lied. You were wrong. You were wrong. You didn't get better. You played terrible teams. And Diesel, of the 6 teams that you played, guess what? Right now, one of those 6 have a winning record. One. Clemson did not get better. They played nobodies, and we were sold a false sense of hope the past 6 weeks.
I remember asking Smitty this question, and I know I asked it of at least one other person. I don't remember if it was David Hood earlier last week. I asked about the mentality of this Clemson Tigers football team. I asked about the mental toughness of this Clemson Tiger football team. They hadn't been tested since week 1, right? They've been blowing the doors off of everybody, putting up 500 yards of offense, taking everybody out in the third quarter. Isn't that great? You put 125 guys into the game on Saturday, Dabo. Ooh, congratulations. Whoop-de-frickin-do. Do you have the ability to put your foot on the throat? Do you have the ability to come back and play better in the second half when you didn't play well in the first half? And by God, Clemson failed. Miserably.
It was bad
at that, Cole. Like I'm shocked right now looking at the penalty yardage and seeing that they were only penalized 5 times for 39 yards because it felt like the penalties were coming often and they felt like they were coming in the worst possible scenarios. I remember seeing at least twice, Cole, where a Louisville player was going out of bounds. Clemson got called for a late hit out of bounds. So it's like the worst possible times. Maybe you weren't getting penalized all that much. Maybe you weren't getting false starts. Maybe you weren't doing dumb stuff until it was the worst possible time for you to do something bad. And then you just compounded a big play with another mistake.
Well, I have a lot to get to. I don't know if I'll be able to get to it all today. It might be tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Diesel, but that was as embarrassing gets. And I had a lot of interaction over the weekend on Twitter with Clemson fans, good and bad. But for the majority, Diesel, for the majority of the fans that I had interactions with, and I'll get to what I thought went wrong in a minute, but the majority of fans that I interacted with are starting to see and smell the roses. The majority of the fans, again, I'm not putting all fans into one category. I'm saying from the fans that I talked to on Twitter over the weekend, went back and forth with, because I wrote an article about how I felt. I think there are a lot more fans after Saturday night that are starting to wake up and see that this Dabo program and this new era of college football is substanceless. You haven't proven anything. Everybody always says, Diesel, oh, well, Dabo's a proven winner. Guess what? He's not. Dabo's not a proven winner in this era of college football. He was a proven winner in the previous era of college football, but Dabo Swinney is not a proven winner in this era. I'll stand by that. I don't care if you're a diehard Clemson fan or not. I'm a Clemson fan, but guess what? I'm a Clemson fan that can take the glasses off and see reality. Dabo Swinney has proven nothing in this new era of college football, and it's just freaking disappointing. It's embarrassing. And Dabo Swinney, something's got to give, because what happened Saturday night, it's inexcusable.
Cole, this is not a rhetorical question. I genuinely want an answer from you. I want an answer from the Tolos. Text in 71307. Start your text with keyword fan here to the Ingles Market Studios. You can call us at 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. How the heck do you outgain an opponent by nearly 100 yards, have no turnovers, have 31 first downs to their 19 first downs, and get absolutely worked in the process? I mean, if you had told me that Clemson had 3 turnovers, right? Like, for whatever reason, Phil Maffa gets hurt and the backup running back fumbles the ball twice, and Cade gets the ball sacked from behind, and he throws a pick, and all of a sudden, oh, okay, Clemson's given up 3 turnovers, and they lose the way that they did. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But how do you statistically crush your opponent and meanwhile get crushed on the scoreboard? It's mind-boggling how this happens.
It is mind-boggling. Look, at the end of the day, Diesel, I put a lot of things in that article because I couldn't fit everything into one tweet. But I think there are so many issues, and I'll start with the defense. The defense, to me, on Saturday night, it wasn't a Clemson defense. Like, it wasn't what Clemson fans were used to seeing. They didn't have an edge. They didn't have a grit. They weren't salty. Defense and special teams was the name of the game for Louisville on Saturday, and not Clemson. Louisville, Diesel, was facing a Clemson team that was averaging 42 points and 490 yards per game. The Cardinals held the Tigers to 450 yards, 4.5 yards per play. Additionally, Louisville blocked 2 Clemson field goal attempts, right? I know there's just 6 points, but still. While Brock Travelstead went 4 of 5 on kicks. So you talk about them winning the game on defense in special teams where Clemson used to be good. They were not good there on Saturday. And we know Brent Venables isn't in town anymore, but Dabo needs to call him. And Dabo needs to say, hey, can you get back here? Because this guy, Wes Goodwin, we have right now, Wes Goodwin ain't it. I'm sorry, he's not. They're not salty like they used to be. They don't have that physicality. And most of all, Diesel, they don't have depth.
You look at the defense, I'll look at the offense. Cade Klubnik threw the ball 56 times in that game. Now, certainly, when you're playing from behind, you have to throw the ball a little bit more, Cole. But when you've got Phil Maffa as your running back, who's averaging 5.7 yards a carry, I mean, he's gashing them. The hell are you doing having Cade throw the ball 56 times? A lot of the times, Cole, that was into the flat. Yeah. Like, I watched the game, I was like, how are they throwing into the flat so much when you're down? When you need multiple scores. Yeah. This is late third quarter, early fourth quarter.
No urgency.
You need multiple scores. There's no urgency in the way that offense played. Then, of course, Cole, you look at the head scratcher of not going for 2 when you're down 13, to make it an 11-point ball game. There's just so much wrong with the way Dabo Swinney coached this football game, with the way that Garrett Riley called this game offensively, And it's mind-boggling. And it's because they hadn't found themselves in this position since week number 1 of the season. And they don't have a clue what to do.
Louisville Diesel put up 366 yards of total offense. You mentioned how Clemson outgained them, including 210 on the ground. Isaac Brown had a monster game Saturday, rushing for 151 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Shuff, 1732, 156 yards. He ran for a touchdown. Louisville's defense, they were excellent. They held Clemson to 54 yards in the third quarter. Diesel, you talk about urgency. There was none. 54 yards in the third quarter. The Tigers went 3 and out to start the second half, then were turned over on downs after that. It was absolutely pitiful, not to mention the first 2 drives of the game. Guess what the first 2 drives of the game resulted in? It wasn't touchdowns like you saw against App State and Wake Forest and the deaf and blind. It was punt, and then you scored a touchdown. And then 5 of the next 6 drives resulted in 0 points. I'm so done with the narrative from Clemson media and those in Clemson that this team's gotten better. Don Munson told us they've gotten better. I'm done. They haven't gotten better. They're not good. They're not even a really good football team. They don't have depth. They don't play like the Clemson team we're used to seeing. And guess what? It's like I said in the article, Dabo used to say one thing, the best is the standard, and they're not even close to best right now. I don't know what standard there is, but we're going to continue to hear Dabo get up there and run his mouth about how good Louisville was, and tomorrow in his weekly press conference, he'll run his mouth about how they're going to respond. He said it Saturday night. It's about how we respond. You know what he said? You can only control what you can control. You can only control how you respond. He said that Saturday night, Diesel, and I have a major problem with that. No, Dabo, you're wrong. You could have controlled the game, and then you wouldn't have to worry about the response. But instead, you didn't control the game. I don't want to hear your stupid sayings anymore. He's absolutely passed by this new game of college football, and until he proves us otherwise, all these people on Twitter, oh, that's the same narrative, come up with something new, and you know who you are. You probably don't even listen to the show, but you follow me on Twitter. You can hit that unfollow button just as quick as you can hit the follow button. Clemson fans need to wake up and smell the roses, Diesel.
I remember saying earlier this year, Cole, and I fully believe it still to this day, Dabo Swinney wants to be right more than he wants to win now. He wants to be right more than he wants to do whatever it takes to win. And that's how you end up in this situation. Now, you've still got a couple of tough opponents left to go in this season. You're on the road at Virginia Tech, on the road at Pitt, who can score a ton of points. I understand that Pitt looked awful this week, but they can still put up a ton of points.
Yeah, let's not talk about it.
And then you got your dreaded we're going to talk about it in the next segment. You got the dreaded South Carolina Gamecocks, who look incredible right now, coming into your house on November 30th. Cole, I see 3 more losable games on this schedule for Clemson. If you tell me right now that Virginia Tech, Pitt, and South Carolina, Clemson runs the table in those 3 games, I'm going to ask you who on each team got hurt. I'm going to ask you, did all 3 quarterbacks go down? Because this Clemson team is not going to be able to play well from behind against any of them. Pitt can score. And if all of a sudden you're asking Cade Klubnik to go out there and be Superman and win you a football game, he doesn't have that in him right now.
Last thing I'll say, because I know we have to run to a break. Diesel, I've said this for several months now, probably a year, to close friends of mine who are Clemson fans. This may be bold. This may come back to bite me. I might be wrong, but I'm telling you how I feel. I'm done with Dabo. I'm done with it.
Really?
I mean, what is it? Again, this is not the old era of college football. Man, I know Dabo has 2 natties. I know he brought Clemson from nothing to the top of the mountain. But guys, ladies, gentlemen, this is a new era of college football, and Dabo has proven nothing. He's proven nothing in this era, Diesel. I'm sick of the same crap every week about how it's going to get better and they're going to respond well. And Kate talk, I'm going to be there from 12 to 7. Nobody cares. You're not the same Clemson you used to be.
Well, that's evidenced by the fact that when they didn't like an onside kick call, Fans were throwing trash on the field.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that it wasn't all fans. It was only some fans, and it seemed to have been shut down fairly quickly from once it started. It wasn't like it was at Texas earlier this season. It wasn't like it was at Tennessee a couple of years ago when hundreds and hundreds of bottles and trash ended up on the field. But come on, Clemson Tiger fans, who the hell are you? Right? I thought this was the sunshine and rainbows, Mr. Rogers bunch that sits around singing Kumbaya and having prayer circles before you go into the stadium.
What's that tell you, though?
That tells me that fan base is full of crap. The fan base is full of crap. Any kind of fan base that does this, we're holier than thou.
That's the coach, not
and
the
then
fan
we're also
base.
No, it's the fan base too.
You can't.
You
cannot.
I
Group.
can group.
You can't group every Clemson fan into one group.
Why didn't I say it wasn't all fans that threw trash on the field?
You just said it was every fan.
I said it was not all fans that threw trash on the field.
I can't blame them. They're fed up. They should be. It's not the fans' fault. It's Dabo's fault.
No, but Clemson fans bought into this fad of throwing garbage onto the field when you don't like the call on the field.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It was the onside kick. It didn't go their way. There was a couple of up men that ran past the ball. You can't do that, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that that's a disturbing trend in and of itself.
It is.
That this is starting to happen more and more in college football, where fans see another school do it. Y'all look at them and say, "Oh, look at those trashy people down in Austin."
Yeah.
And then you go and do the exact same thing.
I'm not condoning
the small percentage of you that did it. And we saw it was, probably 100 water bottles, which is very different from 5,000 water bottles. But still,
I've got one.
You should be ashamed of yourselves. You should be ashamed of yourselves, those Clemson fans who did that. Cole, when we come back, I'm not letting you off the hook on this one. We're jumping into the upset picks. Who hit? Who's riding high? Any movement inside the top 5? We'll talk about that next on the Fan Upstate. Yeah, we had some big wins over the weekend, Cole. A lot.
My phone's ringing. I'll be back in about 5 minutes. I got to take this call.
A lot of Tolos hit
I'm going to sit this one out.
Upset picks, Cole. Not you, though. You weren't one of them. You weren't one of them.
I've got to eat crow today.
So just a reminder to recap where we are inside the top 5. Again, I'm not going to read all of the upset picks standings from last week. As a matter of fact, Dan B is flying the Charlotte Hornets team to a game today. So he's not able to get us a new graphic by the end of the show.
I'm jealous.
Yeah. He's out there doing the Lord's work. We're just down here talking about sports. So Dan B is going to get us a new graphic probably by the end of the day, and we'll have a new graphic for you tomorrow. But Cole, last week's standings were Twisted Whisker in first place with 45.5 points. Noel had 49.5. He's in second place. John Dog with 46. He's in third place. Joe D and Reed Atkins tied for fourth place with 42.5 points. And Amazon Guy in sixth with 39.5. All 6 of those guys hit on their picks this week.
That's rough.
Now, by virtue of the spreads, Cole, we're not going to see any movement, like, any switching of positions in the top 5. They all hit. Not one of them hit with a big enough upset to pass the guy in front of them.
Okay.
What it's going to do, though, is it's really going to tighten up that top 5.
Yeah.
So Twisted Whisker, he took Vandy, and he got roughly 7 points. And I don't remember exactly what the spreads were as of 3:00 on Wednesday, so I'm going to say roughly, okay?
Roughly.
Twisted Whisker with 54.5 points, he hit with roughly 7 points. So he'll now be at 61.5 points. Noel took Louisville. He got roughly 11 points. He'll have 59.5 points. John Dog with me, took Texas Tech plus 13.5 points. So he'll be at 49.5.
You didn't deserve that after the
Why
way
not?
you talked to their defense.
I
the
did.
way you talked to them on Saturday. You didn't deserve that.
I was in the backyard smoking a cigar.
Oh, God.
Texting Cole saying, this effing
Team.
Texas Tech defense, the hell are they doing?
Oh, God.
And then they went down and got it done. Reed Atkins took Vandy, as did Amazon Guy. So both of those Tolos are going to move up 7 points.
Wow.
Yeah.
And by the way, Diesel,
where did you go, by the way? You went down?
I went down.
You went down.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
When I'm wrong, I will let you know. We've got a special guest appearance, Cole the Clown, on today's Wire to Wire. I can promise you, I can assure you, Tolos out there, you can write it down, you can tweet it out, you can put it in your bookmark, you can put it on your refrigerator. I promise you, Pittsburgh is beating SMU Saturday night. Pittsburgh's beating SMU. That's my upset pick.
Spread?
7.5 points. It's not a big spread, but I'm telling you, I looked at that game. It's a lock. SMU's not as good as Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is going to beat SMU, and I don't think I'm telling you, it wouldn't surprise me if that game's not close. The Pittsburgh Panthers Saturday night are going to take down SMU. Book it.
Final score, 48-25.
Oh, you know what?
A 23-point home dub for SMU.
I've had no problem.
The Ponies getting it done.
Eating crow. I'll eat my crow when I'm right, or when I'm wrong, rather, and I'll let you know when I was right. But,
by the way, here's another loss you took, Cole. I got 68% of the vote in our candy draft.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, that was
bad. By the way, the people were wrong on that one, not me.
Yeah. So we had
that was a rough weekend, man. That was rough.
9 Tolos hit on Texas Tech, Iowa State. 6 Tolos hit on Louisville, Clemson. Congratulations to y'all. 3 Tolos hit on South Carolina, Texas A&M. It was only worth 2.5 points, so I understand why not many of you took that game.
Yeah.
1 Tolo hit on Houston, Kansas State. That goes to Jeff R. Congratulations. And 27, Cole, 27 hit on Vandy over Auburn. It got ugly after the game. Did you see that fight that almost broke out on the field? Hugh Freeze was out there getting his players back into the locker room. Man, Man, Vandy is just on one this year.
And I've said it for 3 weeks now. Hugh Freeze is a joke. He's a joke. He's got to go. Like, how's this dude still have a job? I know Vandy's a good story, but come on, man. Hugh Freeze, at the end of the season, Auburn's got to go ahead and cut ties.
Really?
Cut ties.
He's getting paid so much money. He just got there.
He's terrible.
He's recruiting like crazy,
He's
though.
terrible, though.
He's recruiting like crazy.
But they're not winning games. They're losing to Vandy.
Because he hasn't got his guys in there yet.
God. You need to go work for Auburn. All right, Diesel, we're going to
It'd be a pay bump.
Get back into the conversation. Clemson, South Carolina right now. Trending, in my opinion, 2 different ways. We've got Grayson Mann at 420, but Tolos, need your interaction on this subject. 2 programs in the state trending in opposite directions in my mind. You tell me if I'm wrong next.
Sets up the blocking pretty well, too, and we had a good block from my outside guy.
11th play of the drive upcoming with 10:56. Oscar Attaway goes in motion over the right side. It'll be Sellers running it himself. Gets a block inside the 15, 10, 5. Touchdown Carolina. Touchdown Lenore Sellers from 23 yards out on the 11th play of the drive. Are you kidding me? Open it up on a Saturday night at Williams-Brice Stadium.
Are you kidding me is right, Diesel. What a night it was for South Carolina on Saturday. You know, sports radio, it's a little better. It's a little more spicy. The comments, the text messages today, I think we've probably had more text and comments on the stream today than we've had in the first hour since March when you and I started the show. That's what happens when one program wins and the other one loses. But right now, we have to look at where these programs are headed, Diesel.
We had a conversation off the air, Cole, and that's when the truth really comes out. When Clemson wins and South Carolina loses, the callers kind of disappear. You know, it's kind of what both fan bases expect to happen. But, man, on those magical weekends, when South Carolina wins and Clemson loses, it's pandemonium in the comments section.
Yes.
It's all over the text line, 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. We're looking for your live reactions, your thoughts. It's okay. It's okay if you're mad, Clemson fans.
Yeah,
show us that you're mad. Show us that you have the capability to be pissed off and to say Dabo's doing something wrong here. Because a lot of Clemson fans are sitting there quiet.
Yeah.
Hands on their mouth. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. You won't say a bad word about it, even though what you saw on Saturday night should make you sick. The performance on the field, the performance in the stands, and I'm talking about the fans throwing garbage onto the field, and the fans leaving early when the game was still very much in question.
So, Christopher on Twitter, Diesel, 16 minutes ago, here's one of the fans that you're talking about now, who I like what he said. Christopher tweeted at me at the Cole Bryson 16 minutes ago and excuse me, and said, totally agree with you 100% on your rant. In fact, I expected no less from you and Diesel today. There's no excuse for what happened Saturday. I'm with you. I'm tired of Dabo's excuses and his lack of adaptability to today's current college football. And I am a Clemson fan and have been since 1978. So as I said earlier in the show, there are more and more Clemson fans, Diesel, that are finally waking up and pushing back a little bit.
I saw a tweet earlier from the Holy Mackerel. Great screen name.
Yeah.
He tweeted, quote, a real problem at Clemson. Everybody wants to be and moan on social media, but nobody wants to show up and get loud on Saturday. The fan base has become complacent, and it's truly sad to see. If you're bailing in the third, just sell your tickets. If you're the kind of fan that will bail in the third in a game like that, just sell your tickets.
It's embarrassing on all fronts, every front of what happened. And that's why I asked the question based on what you've seen. And I'm not talking about like made up stuff. I mean like real substance here. Based on what you've seen, where do you think these two programs are headed? Which direction? I want to hear from the Tolos as well. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Phone lines are also open, 844-326-3663. Diesel, I remember right after Deshaun Watson left Clemson, I remember this very specifically to this day. I believe it was one of the years in the 5-peat where South Carolina beat Clemson toward the back end. Todd Ellis, who you just heard a minute ago in that call, who does a good job in my opinion. Diesel, Todd Ellis said South Carolina cycling in and Clemson cycling out. Well, that didn't prove to be true then because Clemson went on to win several in a row against South Carolina, and that quote got used in hype videos and all over social media for a very long time. But in terms of what we're actually seeing from the Clemson fans out there that I see on Twitter who come at me and you, why is it unfair for us to judge this program on what we're seeing now and not what we saw in 2016 and 2018 going back to my point, what has Dabo done now? What has he done in the new era? And again, you know who you are on Twitter. These Clemson fans that are just no light bulb. It won't go off. I don't know if the elevator didn't go all the way to the top or not, Diesel, but like you've got to put past this entire mantra of, well, what he did for us in 2016 and 2018 allows him to run this program into the ground. In my opinion, I think these two programs are headed in opposite directions.
Yeah, this is a what have you done for me lately business. What happened in 2016 and 2018 means jack squat right now. I mean, you can look back. I'm not telling you not to look back on it fondly and think, man, those seasons were great.
They were.
And even to look back at the seasons where you got to the national championship and you got beat. I'm not telling you not to look back at those and say that's great. What I'm telling you is that Clemson fans' only concern right now should be trying to get back to that feeling again.
Yeah, that's right.
There's so often, Cole, that we hear Clemson fans say, well, it's okay. It's okay if we don't get back there because we've had our time. We had our trophies.
We had our mindset.
Run of 5 years where we were among the nation's elite in football, which is a loser's mentality because you're telling me it's okay for Dabo not to work as hard as he can, for Dabo not to strategize as hard as he can, for Dabo not to recruit as hard as he can, because you know what? He did it pretty well a couple of years ago. And what's the statute of limitations on that anyway? For those fans who say garbage like that, what's the statute of limitations? Is it 5 years since your last national title? Because by God, you've already passed it. Is it 10 years? I mean, if Dabo, who's still a relatively young man, how old is Dabo? Like 52, 53 years old? Theoretically, Dabo could coach for another 30 years if he wanted to, which could then put those national championships 35 plus years in the rear view. Are you still going to be saying that in 2050 if Dabo's still around? Well, it's okay. It's okay if Dabo's not doing all these things because we won titles back in 2016 and 2018. Like, if you're not doing everything you possibly can and you're unwilling to do everything that you possibly can, get the hell out of the way for somebody who will, because I guarantee you there are elite coaching candidates out there who will do everything they could possibly do at Clemson if given the opportunity. But you've got a whale sitting there who refuses to get the hell out of the way.
It's funny we bring this up, Diesel, but on Friday, you were here in the English Market Studios, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was at Bowling Springs for Bowling Springs Burns. A promo ran on this very station, on these very airwaves. After the promo ran, I got a text message from a friend of mine who's a Clemson fan telling me how wrong I was on the promo. Well, the timing just odd. Here's the promo that I got a text about on Friday. Well, guess what? I got a lot of pushback from a buddy of mine on Friday. Well, a day later, guess what happened? Clemson lost to Louisville. I'm telling you.
Crickets, let me guess.
Crickets.
If only you could call that guy on the show right now.
Crickets. Here's my issue. We, Diesel, you, I, the media, fans, we put a lot of stock into what analysts say about football games. How they lined up. What formations they were in. How they did on offense, right? How they did on defense. But I don't know why we tend to forget the most important value when it comes to football. Who are you lining up against? That's more important than anything else. Yes, the analytics matter. Yes, the offensive scheme and the play calling matters. Yes, you've got to have the Jimmies and Joes. But for whatever reason, these idiotic Clemson fans just can't, again, not all of them, some of them cannot grasp the idea of life in the ACC is nice. I said it on Twitter. The ACC hides or allows you to hide so many deficiencies, Diesel, Just ask those teams in the SEC if you're allowed to hide deficiencies.
South Carolina could change nothing about their program right now. Jump straight into the ACC and be an 11-1 football team most years.
This year they would have the one loss to Georgia, and that's it on Clemson's schedule. They wouldn't. What other game would they lose? Who? I mean, Virginia Tech
losing close against top quality competition shows me a lot more about who you are than blowing out bad competition. And the mentality inside Clemson's program is completely broken right now. It is what can we do to get as many guys on the field? What can we do to make sure parents of players are happy and they're not calling me complaining that my little Johnny's not getting enough playing time? It's ass backwards and what it takes to win football games at the highest level. Now you can feel good about beating up on little old Virginia and little old Wake Forest all you want to. Mm-hmm. And if you're content with that, great. Keep your mouth shut. Say nothing about Dabo Swinney.
Yeah.
But where the hell are these Clemson fans? Why are you not calling in angry today?
Well, they're Clemson fans aren't going to call in angry because Clemson fans are too. Again,
it's like they think Dabo's going to recognize their voice over the radio and then revoke their season tickets.
They're out of their season tickets. They're out of it.
You're allowed to criticize.
You're allowed to have an opinion as well. Here's where I look at this in terms of the two programs we have right now, Diesel. You've got one program in the state who's got a head coach who's willing to do whatever it freaking takes to get talent to his team in Columbia. You've got a head coach who fights for his team, who's gotten talent, who's gotten better, who's recruiting in-state kids, who's building a wall around the state. He's doing whatever it takes to get talent. And you've got another coach who's doing whatever it takes to make sure that he's right when all of this is said and done because he's too prideful to get out of the way and allow himself and his staff to actually be competitive in this new era of college football. To me, it's very simple. It's plain and simple. One coach is willing to do whatever it takes to win. One coach is too worried about how the programs run and graduation rates. Who freaking cares? Shane Beamer wants to win football games. Dabo doesn't anymore. I'm convinced winning's not priority to Dabo Swinney.
Greenville Gamecock messages in at 71307. He started his text with the word fan, so he knows what's up. He says, y'all better quit talking about Dabo or you'll lose those media passes. Hey, look, okay. I'll give Clemson a lot of credit where this is due, Cole, and not all programs are like this. And no, I'm not talking about South Carolina here. There are programs that pay attention to what you say on social media and over the air, and then we'll just they'll wait a couple extra days to reply. They won't send over the media passes, in a timely fashion, and they'll make it difficult on you. There are programs that do that. Clemson has never been that program to us.
Well, if they saw what I, posted on Twitter over the weekend and cared, I probably wouldn't have media passes either. However, my philosophy, Diesel, with journalism, hosting a radio show, I call it like I see it. And if that pisses you off and you don't want me to have a media pass, then whoop-de-doo. Now,
Guess what? I can get 95% of the same experience, and I can get 100% of the same information watching on television and reading box scores as I can sitting in that press box.
Right, and I'll say this. I don't believe in creating false, narratives and creating all kind of, just drumming up stuff, begging for engagement, clickbait. I don't try to do that. I tell you how I feel. I want to be honest with you, and I want you to appreciate honesty, whether it's for your team or not for your team, because at the end of the day, fans need to hear the truth, Diesel. That's what it all comes down to.
JD brings up a very interesting point on the stream, and I'm glad you said this, JD. He says, when Dabo ruled the ACC, he did it because Spurrier forced him to have a good team, a team good enough to compete in the SEC, to win. Now, there may be a tiny bit of self-aggrandizing there, saying that it's South Carolina's fault, and I'm saying that with air quotes. It's South Carolina's fault. It was their inspiration that made Clemson and Dabo Swinney do enough to be elite.
Sure.
But to finish that point, Cole,
yeah,
if South Carolina finds themselves being ranked higher than Clemson, especially at the end of the season, but let alone if this train keeps rolling into next season, and all of a sudden South Carolina is the team that's ranked in the top 20. Clemson is the team that's struggling to get votes in the AP top 25. Then you might be onto something. There might be a very, very real push inside of the building, because we can yell into the ether all we want to. Dabo Swinney says in press conferences, I just want to let you know I don't hear you guys. Yeah, you do, Dabo. If you didn't hear us, you wouldn't mention us at all. But you say things like that in the press conferences that prove otherwise. But this could be the catalyst that forces him to change.
Yeah. Want to go to the phones, but real quick, texter from the 803 says, I watched Oregon play Saturday and then watched Clemson, and it looked like a different sport with a massive difference in speed, athleticism, and talent. Clemson is a solid team with solid players, but nothing jumps off the screen. I don't disagree with that. I don't push back on that. All right, to the phones we go, 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663, and then we're going to run to a break because we have Grayson Mann of TigerNet joining us in the very next segment. Diesel, anonymous caller, does not want to give his name because he doesn't want to get in trouble. That's okay, but he does want to talk about Clemson football. What's up, man? Oh, let me try that again. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. Were you guys even at the game?
I was.
I'm just curious.
Yes.
Did you notice how much Dabo Swinney was pacing back and forth on the sidelines? I've never seen him pace that much, especially in the fourth quarter. Whenever they were down by 2 scores and there was no urgency, he just seemed like he was so mad that the play wasn't getting in and the play call was going all the way down to 5 seconds. There's no 2-minute drill at all. Anyway, I'm just curious.
I didn't notice it, but again, there was no urgency. I'll tell you that. I noticed that.
And the fans were booing because we're not getting the play in. I just never seen anything like that before at a Clemson game. And my question about Dabo is, do you think that he is afraid to use a transfer portal because he's scared that Clemson's going to wind up like Florida State?
Well, I think he cares a lot about the quality of life and the culture that he has created with the players and how they're developed and the men that he builds. And there's nothing wrong with all of that. But I also think that he cares more about that than he does winning football games. And he's not going to sell his soul to the devil, in my mind, in order to win at all costs. That's my opinion.
All right, I appreciate it, guys. I just want to get my opinions in.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Colin. Appreciate that.
844-FAN-PHONE at 844-326-3663.
Just a reminder, we'll be off at 6:30 today as we make way for Furman Paladins basketball. 6:30 broadcast, 7 o'clock first tip. Furman going to play Columbia International, the first game for a lot of teams in college basketball coming tonight. When we come back, Grayson Mann of TigerNet going to join us to talk more about this Clemson downturn, this ugly performance that we saw on Saturday. That's next. A disappointing at all levels of football performance from the Clemson Tigers on Saturday. They take the loss to Louisville. First time ever Louisville as a program had beaten Clemson. We're joined right now by Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com right here on the Fan Upstate. Grayson, I'm gonna come at you strong right here from the beginning. I joked that Clemson fans proved they are SEC ready because just like Tennessee and Texas fans, they throw trash on the field when they don't like calls. This happened in Texas. Do you advocate using camera footage and banning fans from the stadium if they can prove who was throwing trash onto the field?
Coming out swinging. I love it. Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier in the month when that Texas debacle happened that it set an ugly precedent for college football and just sports in general, having something you don't like occur on the field. And so instinctually, these guys are throwing just garbage onto the field, and you're having fans and cheerleaders and photographers scrambling around there. It was bad. And I think Clemson sent out a message, and I wouldn't be shocked if bans are thrown around, or they'll probably follow whatever punishment Texas laid onto their student body. So certainly an ugly finish to an ugly night. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things move forward.
Grayson, very simple question here. If I am a Clemson fan out there in the upstate, Spartanburg, Greenville, Anderson, wherever you may be listening today on the Fan Upstate, tell me why I shouldn't want to pull the fire alarm.
I think because we got a lot of football to play left. I think Sweeney articulated that on Saturday night, that, yeah, it is an unfortunate result that they're no longer going to have the control of their own destiny. There's a lot of negatives sure to be taken away from Saturday, but a lot can happen. We've already seen that in this month. This season's reminded me a lot of 2007, where things just continue to fall apart in the top 25, regardless of where you look. I think Oregon's the last remaining standing team from that initial top 10 that's really survived the brunt of this season. So we're going to really find out a lot about this team on Saturday against Virginia Tech, where, hey, the postseason may not be in the cards anymore, but what is the character? What is the makeup of this roster? We're really going to figure that out in Blacksburg. So yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a readjustment for a lot of fans who saw September and October as signs of growth, and things quickly fell apart.
Is that where we are now, though, Grayson? Like character and makeup of the team more than winning? Is that where we are?
It's a good question, Cole. I'm not really sure. I think that it's a season where I think a lot of fans were able to give Clemson some slack with the Georgia result because of the pedigree that the Bulldogs have built up. But looking at the last couple seasons, this is sort of what Clemson is. And Dabo Swinney said it many times, and I'm sure we'll get into it about the X's and O's of the game, but I have written down here, situational football killed them on Saturday night. And Sweeney's been very clear that it's been the small details that have turned what he believes is a great team into a good team. It's what's held them back from reaching to that college football playoff pinnacle. And rewatching this game, Cole, I told you about it. I have a copious amount of notes, and a lot of it's just a lot of question marks of situationally, what are we exactly trying to achieve here? And I think, again, in November, we're going to find out a lot about where things are headed. I think we still have a lot more questions that need to be answered.
Yeah, Grayson, I questioned all last week, would a team that hasn't been tested mentally since week 1 of the season, a team that's been able to take starters out midway through the third quarter every game this year, would they have what it takes to weather that storm, to get punched in the mouth a couple of times the way they did against Louisville and find a way to claw back in and win the game? Because I always say great football teams find ways to win even when they're not playing well. And Clemson showed themselves last night not to be a great football team. You know, you would have a blocked field goal that turns around and goes points the other way. So that's a 10-point swing. What does Dabo say to a team like that when they've just failed so miserably at every phase of the game to try to get their head screwed back on straight for a road opponent that is not nationally ranked, doesn't have a whole lot of praise this year, but they have a tough football team?
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow entering the building this week. And I think for all that everyone's going to come after Sweeney for, I think Sweeney's best quality as a coach is the just maybe blind positivity to an extent, where no matter what, he's going to go in there with a smile on his face. He's going to try to find a way to rally his guys. And you're going to need that this week. You're going to need that for the players as well. It's going to be, like I said a couple of minutes ago, it's going to be a real challenge to what this team is going to be all about. It's where you were 4-4 last year and you finished 9-4 after winning 5 straight. It's just, I think the disappointment, it reminds me a lot of 2022 where off the bye week, you get your tail kicked in South Bend. You come and you win 2 straight, but again, you falter to your rival at home. So one game's probably not going to define it in Virginia Tech. It's going to see how they fare against Pittsburgh, a team that's going to be in wounded animal mode fighting for their ACC destiny, a team in South Carolina that looks great after claiming an upset victory over Texas A&M that had a lot of momentum going into this. I don't think we get all of our answers really solved in Virginia Tech. I really think this is going to be a process to see, okay, after November, where are we? Where is this program? I think that's what Sweeney's going to have to ask not only himself, but the staff.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, pinch hitting for David Hood. Grayson always does a fantastic job. You know, I don't know if there was anything said post-game, Grayson, about the bye week, but, you know, I can't speak for every Clemson fan out there, but one of the biggest issues is that was your performance after a bye week. And I don't know, did Dabo Swinney touch on that at all?
I know certainly a fan below me did, scream the entire fourth quarter saying you had 2 weeks to prepare for this. That was maybe the best part of the stadium emptying pretty early. Is you got to hear some of the commentary from some pretty irate fans at the end of that one. So that was pretty interesting. But I think they're not going to try to use that as an excuse. I think Sweeney's, the bottom line from him was, hey, we got outcoached. I got outcoached. This is on me. Sort of the usual things that you're hearing from him after disappointing losses like this. But again, this is another night. This is the second time in the last 2 years where Clemson's ran and thrown for 200 yards each on the ground, through the air, and you come up away with a loss. And the difference between this and the Duke loss last year is there aren't any really turnovers to really point to and go, yeah, that's the issue right there. It's a lot of situational things, the lack of urgency in the fourth quarter, multiple blocked kicks, whether it's a punt or a field goal. It's just leaving you scratching your head going, where is this team sort of executionally? Because that's what we were told all week and in the open date availability, that this was going to be a week of situational and mental, sort of trying to build that part of this team and using that as a, hey, we're going to try to get these guys into situations to practice to get us into November. And the team came out as at least prepared as I've seen it in the last couple of years.
He creates for TigerNet.com. Grayson Mann joining us here on the Fan Upstate. To that point, what did Garrett Riley, what did Dabo Swinney have to say after the game about the complete imbalance of throwing and running the football? Phil Maffa was having himself a good football game. He had just under 6 yards a carry, but yet Cade Klubnik threw the ball 56 times. When you've got a running back with as much pedigree as Phil Maffa has, and he's picking up 5.5 yards a pop, why are you not feeding that guy and trying to break the will of the Louisville defense?
I think eventually the reason Klubnik had to throw it 56 times is because the clock becomes your enemy down 19. And I wrote it down in the first half is that I think from about the first quarter, about the 6-minute mark to, check here, about 12 minutes in the second quarter, there was some good football there. They were putting together a pretty complimentary drive to put them up 7-3. Klubnik was moving well around the pocket. Phil Maffa, as you pointed out, was getting some chunk yardage. And it felt like Clemson sort of got away from it. I think the score likely dictated a lot of that, where they didn't really control the flow of the game because Louisville, out of nowhere, off of a block kick, goes up 17-7 entering the half. And then the snowball that's rolling down the hill just grows and grows and grows. And then all of a sudden, you're down 19 chasing instead of trying to control what was working and what you practiced all week. So quickly, it became a mess for Clemson and something that they couldn't necessarily dig out of.
Grayson, are Clemson fans that you're hearing from on a daily basis, weekly basis, at the games, on social media, from what you're hearing and others that you work with, are Clemson fans growing more and more kind of just PO'd, kind of frustrated, kind of just, same old Clemson football in the past 3 to 4 years? I said it in the very first hour. We hear a lot that Dabo Swinney, he's proven himself, but the fact of the matter is he hasn't proven himself in this era of college football. So every time Dabo gets defensive, we hear this defense mechanism kick in. But I want to know from you, somebody who does it on a daily basis, are you seeing more and more a growing concern from the fans?
Yeah, I think there's a growing concern, and I think rightfully so, because I think this loss, and I can shout out the various group chats that I'm a part of, one particularly dubbed Program after Dabo Sweeney's use of the word. But yeah, there's some frustration. And I think it's equally painful because of how this team built itself up this year, going 6-1, really being in a position where, hey, if you'd won your first 3 games in November, you at least have a shot. It's like the play-in tournament in the NBA. You got a shot here. If you win, you're in, or the first 4 in March Madness. So I think it's disappointing from that standpoint. We're in the ACC, getting to the playoffs or at least having a shot in the ACC championship might be considered more of a layup on paper just because of the talent that this roster supposedly has compared to other teams within the league. So I think a lot of fans are frustrated. I think you can take it in a variety of different directions. I'm not going to speak on anybody's behalf, but it's certainly out there and it's very verbal. It was verbal yesterday. It's verbal this morning. And I'm sure the more we hear from coaches, players, it's going to be an interesting week. It reminds me of the Georgia week where people are just waiting for a result. And we'll have to find out against Virginia Tech what result that'll be.
Grayson, you've watched a lot of football. Cole and I have watched a lot of football. A lot of times you can kind of get a sense of whether or not a team has the mental fortitude to make a push and a comeback. Was there a point in that game that you can point to, taking any fan allegiances you may have out of it, 10,000-foot view, where you say, this kind of feels like the point where it's over for Clemson? Was it, the fourth down stop with 5 minutes to play in the third quarter? Was it when Louisville blew up in the backfield and took Clemson down on a fourth down play? Is there one spot that you could point to and say, yeah, at this point, that's it? That's when you mentally fold up the chair and start heading to the portal.
I think for Clemson, I think where it really truly started to shift was that Louisville just kept pushing and pushing. And when Peter Woods went down in the second quarter, something that David and I have really talked about is that the drop off when it comes to just the depth that Clemson's accumulated. Louisville, a team that Clemson has historically dominated, went and just took it to them in the front 7. And so you think in the back of your mind, when it's 17-7, if they can't get a stop, because usually at some point it's going to get to the situation where you got to stop the run game. You got to stop some clock and get the ball back. And Clemson was unable to protect Klubnik. They were unable to sustain any offensive rhythm. I think that fourth down stand where they truly couldn't run the football and things really started to fall apart is really when it started to happen. But I think the onside kick particularly is when the deflation truly began, where bottles were being thrown. The defense is having to trot out there after having just a quick moment of relief going, okay, maybe our offense is going to get out here. About 7 minutes to go. Anything can happen. We've seen this team make big plays. And then Louisville goes and scores in one play. And then it was truly over at that point. But I thought once Louisville was getting chunk plays off the ground, it was going to be a tough night for Clemson.
Grayson, when I look at this defense this year, and I know Wes Goodwin's had some good defenses in his time at Clemson, but, watching this defense compared to the defense a lot of Clemson fans are used to seeing, you talk about the depth. You talk about, the way that past defenses just kind of, pushed offensive lines around in ways that you didn't see on Saturday night. Impose their will is the word I was looking for. Do you feel like this Clemson defense strikes fear into opponents?
I think it depends on who you ask. Because we've seen a Clemson defense that was going toe for toe against Georgia in the opener and was 6-0 at the half, and then the offense just couldn't sustain much, and then the tread on those tires eventually fell off. So we've seen moments from this defense, but I stress that it's moments. They're not putting it together as consistently. I remember it was after the Virginia game. David and I were sitting down to do our post-game show, and the top of our minds was, is there a certain writing on the wall here for a better team that comes in here? Because it's only going to get harder in November. The stakes, the standard, the opponents. And we saw that on Saturday, that if you can gash them enough, there's enough of an exposure there, especially with Woods out, with DeMonte Capehart out, Shelton Lewis at nickel, really you start to see the cracks. And what I noticed too, I had it written down, and that Clemson was starting to have to bring Barrett Carter and Wade Woodaz over, sacrificing a little bit more coverage to try to contain that run, and they still weren't able to. You got to give Louisville a ton of credit. Isaac Brown, I mean, what a back in the backfield there for the Cardinals in the future. They're going to be a fun team to watch, and I think for Clemson, it's going to be back to the drawing board. But if you're Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, South Carolina, a team with a running quarterback, a team with Rocket Sanders in the backfield, you're getting a little giddy watching that film on Saturday night going, we might have a formula here to take down Clemson for the second time in 3 years. But again, I'm probably getting way too ahead of myself on that one.
Grayson, as we're running out of time here, I do want to ask you one quick question, just general thoughts on Charleston Southern Clemson basketball tonight. It's going to be a big prove-it year for Brad Brownell. Got himself had himself a phenomenal run in the tournament last year. New faces, new pieces coming in. If you got any quick thoughts on that.
I'm pumped, man. I really enjoyed, especially my time on the Clemson beat covering Brad Brownell's team, a team that's really ascended in the last 3 years, and to a potentially consistent team out of the ACC to make the tournament. And they got a lot of different pieces this year. It's probably the most, I think, different feeling group from the last couple of seasons. It's going to be really coming down to Chase Hunter in that offense. And we saw him as the go-to guy in the tournament, and that's obviously a short sample size, but the stakes, of course, are just heightened to another level. So I think the offense is going to run through him. I'm excited for pieces like Victor Locken in the front court. I think Clemson has a potential to have a pretty substantial front court if Christian Reeves can develop into a good 10 to 15 minutes per game. That's going to be really what I'm watching for the first couple of matchups here. But yeah, a lot of expectations from Brownell's group. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to cover it all and hopefully talk to you guys about it a little bit down the road.
No doubt. Grayson, great stuff as always, man. Appreciate your time. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Y'all take care.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. Always a pleasure talking Clemson football, whether it be David Hood or Grayson Mann. David, Diesel, I didn't mean to just be, Mr. Frustrated over here, but sometimes you gotta ask tough questions. And I think a lot of frustrated fans out there should become more vocal, like you said earlier, and let your voice be heard, man. Because if you're content winning 8-9 games a year, then be content. I'm not. I don't like winning 8-9 games a year. All right, Daily Wires, Diesel. When we come back, boy, a lot to get to. Top headlines in sports next. caught up on what's happening in the sports world. You may call them headlines, but here on this show, we call them Daily Wires.
Buzz.
That's right. It's the buzz. I want to give a quick shout out to JB on the YouTube stream. Diesel. JB's daughter, the Burns High School Rebel Regiment Marching Band, won the 5A state championship this weekend. So congratulations to them on that for that state championship. For the band. Did you play in the band?
No, I did not.
I did not either.
No,
band.
I pointed and laughed at the kids in the band.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, you actually had to go there. I did too. All right, Diesel. Big news today. The Saints fired Dennis Allen yesterday. I watched Dennis Allen and the Saints lose their 7th straight game. I got to interview a few players like Alvin Kamara in the locker room, and after the game, did not expect that to be it for Dennis Allen. But the Saints have made a change, and that is huge. Mid-season firing, the second one this year.
Yeah, that'll happen when you start hot and lose 7 games in a row.
7 in a row. Like, how does that happen? That is bad. Also, over the weekend, Diesel, here locally, not a good weekend for a few of our teams. However, Wofford was on the winning side of things. They defeated Sanford 17-13. Furman lost to VMI 21-17. Limestone defeated Newberry 35-14. Anderson lost to Carson Newman 28-7. North Greenville lost to West Alabama 17-14. College hoops. Clemson hosts Charleston Southern tonight at 7 p.m. to start the regular season. And South Carolina also starting their regular season hosting North Florida at 7 p.m.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes with the new transfers that have come in. Victor Lakin, who was
big,
at
man.
Cincinnati last year, I believe. He's 6'11", 245. Yeah. We said that last year that Clemson was missing a true big man inside. We'll see what happens.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun, man, watching these two programs this year, Clemson and South Carolina Diesel. They could be both. They again, last year was a good year for them both.
Could have 2 top 25 teams in the state.
That'd be fun, wouldn't it? You and I had a lot of fun last March when both teams were good. You know, obviously Carolina had a tough stretch down the road, but Clemson, it's a lot more fun when you win. Let's see. Clemson fell to number 19 in the country, Diesel, in the latest AP poll. The Gamecocks received 58 votes. It was Clemson's first ever loss to Louisville, and they dropped. But Gamecocks, man, I mean, what do they have to do to get in this thing?
They got to beat Vanderbilt.
You think so?
If they beat Vanderbilt, they'll be ranked. Vandy will fall from 23, I think is where they are right now, 24.
Yeah.
They'll fall outside of the top 25. Yep. South Carolina will be in, and we talked about this a little bit earlier in the show. I think that's the best possible thing for this team, to not be feeling yourself a little too much after beating a Texas A&M team. I think they were number 11 in the country last week. You need that little chip on your shoulder to keep you salty going into this Vanderbilt game. Tell these guys everything you want is in front of you. Go beat Vandy. Don't worry about the number next to your name. Just go get it done.
No, I believe you're right there. I believe you go beat Vandy. You are in the top 25. Diesel, you've got to be – why aren't you happier? The Carolina Panthers won yesterday.
Wow, it's possible.
Yes. 23-22 win over New Orleans.
I mean, they beat a team that's now lost 7 in a row, that was down 3 of its best defensive players.
But they got the coach fired. The Panthers got the coach fired. They can brag about it.
When Grayson Mann said that Dabo was, Mr. Eternally Optimistic, I was like, when did Dabo Swinney become the head coach of the Carolina Panthers?
Canales is.
When did Dave Canales become the head coach of the Clemson Tigers?
Let me tell you the best quote I heard yesterday in the press box of the Panthers game. One of the Panthers representatives looked over at somebody he was talking to late in the fourth quarter and said, "We're winning." It was like being light bulb. I mean, I laughed out loud. The Panthers won. Diesel, you hit in the upset picks challenge this weekend. Congratulations to you. I did not. We heard the clown audio that made the appearance earlier in the show. Obviously a tough weekend for my upset pick. The Las Vegas Raiders have fired offensive coordinator Luke Getsy after 9 games. The Raiders also fired offensive line coach James Craig, quarterbacks coach Ryan Scangelero.
Fire everybody.
Boy, I like it. Clean house. If you're not winning, you got an owner that cares, right? Also, over the weekend, you heard on this station, the Burns Rebels won their final regular season game on Friday, defeating Bowling Springs 27-22. South Carolina was fined $250,000 by the Southeastern Conference for rushing the field after the 44-20 win. Diesel, you said if they do it again, it goes up to $500,000?
$500,000. And
wow.
It's in a calendar year. So if South Carolina rushes the court in basketball at the early part of this season, or Cole rushes the field one more time at Williams-Brice, it's $500,000, and that money doesn't go to the league office. That money goes to the other team.
Man, they need to just they just need to wait till January to do it again.
It's to me, it's a cost benefit analysis. Like, how expensive is it to have enough security so that can't happen? But how much does that cost for one game?
I mean, you see at NFL games, they've got people lined literally shoulder to shoulder. That's a lot, though.
Yeah, that's a couple hundred people that you got to pay
at least
hourly rate. What is that? Yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot of money. Also, despite the win on Sunday yesterday, Diesel, Dave Canales was not ready. A follow-up reporter even asked him the follow-up question. Are you sure you're not ready? Dave Canales was not ready to name Bryce Young the starter. And I'll get to one more, and then we have to run. We'll get to some of these later in the show. Dak Prescott, how about this? Caught on camera mouthing some choice words. We I can't read this without laughing. We bleeping suck to a fellow player. At least Dak recognizes it, right?
Well, doing the math here, Cole, $250,000 divided by the roughly, let's say a human body is roughly 3 feet wide. You want to stand shoulder to shoulder, go all the way around that field. That would take you roughly 300 people, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But if you paid each one of them $833 to be there, that's what equals the $250,000 fine.
Wow, that's a lot.
So it'd actually be a lot more cost effective if you just paid them like $100 to come and be at the game and don't let anybody pass you.
Or you could say, hey, look, if you storm the field, that's fine, but you have to pay $3.
Here's how you do it. Electrify the bushes.
Yeah. I like it. Kill them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just turn the voltage down. Okay. Like, I'm not talking cattle fence here, but I'm not talking like, a little buzz, a little tap. I'm talking something enough to get your attention and say, you know what? I don't want to go that way.
All right. It's time to overreact, Diesel. You ready?
That's right. Overreaction Monday starts next on the Fan Upstate. Tolos, this is your chance, your opportunity to call in and sound off and overreact about what you saw this weekend. That's totally okay, whatever it is you want to say. Cole, I have a couple. You have a couple. Want to hear from the Tolos as well. 71307. Start your text with keyword fan or call us 844-326-3663. That's the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone.
I love to overreact.
You do?
God, I love it.
You do?
It just makes you feel like better.
Yeah, it's okay just to take it that little step too far. That's what we do on this segment. Cole, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay.
I want you to go first on this.
Overreaction number one for me. Clemson fans are SEC ready. The team is Sunbelt ready.
Oh,
because we've already seen that Clemson can't even beat the better end of the ACC.
Diesel.
They are Sunbelt ready.
That's rough.
But Clemson fans are SEC ready. You know why, Cole?
Yeah, dude.
Because only SEC fans throw garbage onto the field. Tennessee, Texas, they're throwing garbage onto the field when they don't like calls because it just means more in that conference. So, Clemson fans, you've proven yourself to me.
That's bad,
You've
man.
proven yourself to
That
me
is
that
bad.
you are, in fact, SEC ready.
It's funny, but it's bad. Look, the reality is they're not elite. I mean, we know that. It doesn't take a genius to tell us that. I think the best thing for them, Diesel, if I were Dabo Swinney, I would beg. I'd get on my knees and beg to go to the SEC because you're never going to be able to stay consistently relative and know how you are year in and year out playing in the All Cupcake Conference. I'd want to go to the SEC tomorrow, number one, for more resources, but number two, so you can actually know how good you are. Dabo Swinney, though, right now, he'd be getting demolished, in my opinion, in the SEC. Those deficiencies, buddy, you talk about deficiencies, those would be exposed every week.
Overreaction number two for me is that Boise State, sitting at number 12 right now in the AP poll, will get a CFP bye, and it'll be over the Big 12's champion, who right now looks like it's going to be BYU. I think Boise State's going to get it done. You know why? Because Boise State doesn't have a super strong schedule going forward. Last 4 weeks of the season. BYU does. Looking at their ESPN matchup predictor, they've got a couple games where they're less than a 60% chance to win the game. They're favored in every game going forward, but one game was like 55-45.
Yeah.
And Boise State's just going to keep on rolling teams. They've got Ashton Genty. You telling me that the CFP wants to take a potential Heisman Trophy candidate and bury him in the 12 spot? Not going to happen.
I don't disagree with him getting in. It'll surprise me if they get a bye, even though they may deserve it by the time the season's over. But I like Boise State. They're a good team. They really are.
Putting up points. And finally, Cole, despite the win, Bryce Young still sucks. Because
Don't
Bryce
say
Young,
that.
Bryce Young
go there.
got it done yesterday. Got it done. Congratulations to Bryce Young. But how many times was Bryce Young throwing up ducks that should have been intercepted late down the stretch? He had one of them picked off, which that wasn't even a particularly bad throw. The defender,
that was a great play.
Yeah, the defender, Shamar Jean-Charles from App State, by the way, for the New Orleans Saints. He just made a great play on the ball.
And even Xavier Legette, after the game, we were interviewing him in the locker room. He said, that was one of the best plays I've ever seen on the ball. It was a good play.
Yeah, but there were just a couple of throws there down the stretch that Bryce Young got very lucky to not have picked off. So Bryce still stinks. He doesn't have the arm strength. He doesn't have whatever he needs in this league. So congratulations on the win. You beat probably the second worst team in the NFL right now as of Sunday. So yeah, Bryce still sucks.
Don't rain on the parade. I mean, no, look, I'm trying to push back with you. He played good. He didn't play great. Didn't play horrible. I thought he made some good decisions. Wasn't asked to do a lot. They got outgained and still won the football game. But at the end of the day, I didn't think Bryce played horrible. But you're right. We don't really know much. It was the Saints. They just fired their coach. All right. I'll give you mine quickly, and then we'll react after we go to the phone line where we have two Tolos standing by. Number one for me, Dabo Swinney is mid. He's mid. In the new era of college football, he's mid. He hasn't proven anything. You listening, driving through Spartanburg or Greenville or Anderson right now or Somerville or wherever you may be, you may just be, MFing me right now, and that's okay. But in this new era of college football, Dabo Swinney, and my overreaction is he's mid. That's all he is.
Well, he's mid, and the competition in the ACC so far to this point in the season, prior to Louisville, had been so bad that it disguised the fact that Dabo's mid.
Number two, South Carolina. My overreaction, they're a top 15 team in the country. Why are they not in the top 25? Top 15 right now. This Gamecock team, Diesel, to me, is a top 15 team. They have the defense. They can run the football. I think they just beat A&M, right, who's 15. I think they would beat LSU if they played them again. Obviously, they didn't. They lost. I think they'd beat SMU. I think they'd beat Boise State. We know how close they beat Bama, who was 11. I think they have a very good shot against Notre Dame. I think they beat BYU and Indiana. And who knows about Tennessee and Penn State. But I do. I think they're top 15. That's my second overreaction.
Well, that South Carolina that we saw on Saturday absolutely is a top 15 team. The question is what South Carolina will show up next week against Vanderbilt. Because how many times this season have we talked about their inconsistency and their inability to put it together week in and week out? Now, I think they've been fixing those issues as they went along, right? They had offensive and defensive issues early when the defense got it figured out, but then the offense couldn't quite put it together. Yep. And then they finally put both sides of the football together in 1 week. Shout out to the way that team played. But I think that might be why some AP voters are still a little bit wary. I think they're wrong. I think they're absolutely wrong because there are other teams who are getting the benefit of the doubt when they've had bad performances too.
Sure.
That South Carolina is not getting. But I guess when you've already been in the top 25 early in the season, this is why it matters that the AP poll exists before the season even starts, because teams like Missouri still get the benefit of the doubt, even though they've shown you how many times this season they don't deserve it.
Yeah.
But they are still sitting there first in others receiving votes, while South Carolina is 30-something votes back in second.
My third, and then we're going to get to the Tolos on the phones. JD, Dell, we're coming to you. The Cowboys should immediately fire Mike McCarthy. Dennis Allen was fired this morning. McCarthy's now lost 3 in a row. They play the Texans next week. It'll be 4 in a row. This team's not good. Dak Prescott's hurt. He's out several weeks now. It's going to get worse before it gets better. So you might as well go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off now. You've seen enough that's shown Mike McCarthy has regressed. There's nothing there. Get rid of him. And maybe Jerry will croak in the next few days.
Well, you know what Jerry Jones is going to do? He's going to ride with Mike McCarthy till the end of the season, wait 2 weeks, then fire Mike McCarthy or choose not to renew Mike McCarthy. And then he's going to start a committee, and then they're going to start looking for a new head coach. And then all of a sudden, bam, the next season is here, and you waited too damn long, and you can't get anybody that's worth a damn.
Jerry forming a committee? You must not know Jerry. Jerry needs no committee. He'll go. He's the smartest guy in the room, Diesel. All right, let's go to JD, who was first in line. JD, what's up, man? What's your overreaction?
Hey, gentlemen, thanks for taking my call. My first reaction for this weekend is that Shane Beamer finally listened to me when I call into y'all's radio station and I tell him that I know more situational football than he does. Guess what he didn't do? He didn't make any stupid special teams calls. He didn't put in Robbie Ashford for no reason in the second quarter. It was Lenora Sellers' game. He is the starter. So my reaction is Shane Beamer finally listened to JD and said, give the car keys to Lenora Sellers. And secondly, my overreaction is Clemson fans, hey, y'all are ready to come to the SEC, throwing all that trash all over the field, just like Texas and Tennessee. And, hey, can we get some batteries and some mustard? Maybe we'll throw that at Lane Kiffin a little bit. But, hey, kudos to you guys. Y'all stuck it out to the third quarter for one time, baby. And then one more overreaction. The San Diego Chargers with Jim Harbaugh. will be a legit playoff contender. Y'all be blessed, not stressed. We'll see y'all on the other side.
Thanks, JD. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. You said something similar about that.
Yeah.
SEC ready, too.
By the way, a playoff contender, meaning they're going to contend to make the playoffs, or a Super Bowl contender, meaning that they could make a deep run in the playoffs?
Playoffs?
Playoffs.
What?
Very good question.
Playoffs. All right, Dale, what's up? What's on your mind? What's your overreaction, Dale?
I am a more qualified GM than Jerry Jones, and here is my proof to that. Through 2 fantasy drafts and a combined record of, 15-1, I believe I am more qualified than Jerry Jones to run a football team.
Tell us why.
I'm undefeated in one league. I have 1 loss in the other.
Yeah, but Dale, don't you auto draft?
No, sir. That's basketball. Football,
Don't curse him like that.
I'm all about it. Basketball, auto draft. I don't care. But football, no, I pick them my own.
Dale, I said let's go ahead and fire Mike. You agree with that?
Not only do I agree with that, but I think the team will galvanize itself around Cooper Rush, and we will win 2 of the 3 games. I'm predicting Dak being out for 3.
I don't know if
2 of those 3 games.
Well, I don't know if you remember this or not.
Rush
That happened in 2020. I was living in Dallas.
Yes.
Was it 21?
3 years ago.
3 years ago, yeah.
When yes, I remember. Yes, and we weren't supposed to win any of those games. That was Minnesota was good.
Yes,
that
on
year.
the road.
We went into them and beat them. Oh yeah, that was huge. Cooper Rush is a viable backup, probably better than Dak is right now, considering Dak has thrown 10 picks. So Jameis Winston's 30 interception record is going to be safe now because Dak can't throw when he's sitting on the bench.
All right, Dale. Thanks for the call. Oh gosh,
What do you think it is about? Hey, we see it so often, Cole. The coach, the players who get that big old bag of money and then just fall off the cliff a little bit. Do you think it's like I'm rich now, so I don't really have to care that much?
No, I think it's you tied all your money up in the quarterback, and now you have nothing else. Yet,
Well,
what are you gonna do?
I mean, Dak got his big old fat payday, and his skills have diminished. Not that he doesn't have as good a wide receivers, but Dak's skills have diminished. And then he's on the sidelines being videoed saying we bleep and suck to other players on the team.
They do.
I mean, that's your leader right there. I'm assuming that Dak is a team captain, right?
He is. I mean,
that's your leader.
But he's right.
But you can't say that out loud.
Why?
Because he's the leader.
I like honesty. Say it. Throw the trash on the field. Look, the team sucks. There's not much. They suck. I just, right now I don't know. I'm kind of checked out. I'm done. Mongo wants to chime in with his overreaction. Diesel.
Well. Look who it is. Mongo has remembered us. He's off doing bigger and better things in life, and he's finally remembered us little guys.
No, I wasn't doing bigger and better things in life, Diesel. I was trapped for 7 hours under a damn pecan tree during Hurricane Helene. God, what a nightmare.
I thought that was some sort of metaphor for marriage.
No, that's been 20 years ago. So I've kind of gotten used to that.
He's down in that storm shelter.
If you want overreaction, here's the overreaction. Just as sure as I'm eating a Christmas tree cake with Halloween decorations still in my yard, South Carolina, as good as they played Saturday, will scare the hell out of us against Vanderbilt this coming Saturday. Vanderbilt terrifies me. Me.
Yeah. Well, it's classic South Carolina, right? You go win a big game. I mean, I remember back Alabama back in 08, 09, and lost to Kentucky the next week.
Yeah. And real quick, just because I have the heart that I have, I want to put out a welfare check for Shadow of Death Valley. He's been completely incognito on Twitter for about the past, 2 days, 3 days, something like that.
Oh, bro. Well, that's because you're a good.
What happened to him? I hope that he's okay.
That's just
really
because you're a good person, Mongo. That's we appreciate that about you. You care about people.
I do. I care about people, Diesel, and I really care about him, and I'm looking out for his welfare. So I'm hoping that some of you Clemson fans out there can go check on your boy, because when you guys were winning, he was all over, and then all of a sudden he's gone. Blip.
I love
it's
it.
like Thanos snap his fingers and poof, he's gone.
I love
Mongo, we appreciate you. Love hearing your voice again, pal. Thanks for calling back in. Don't be a stranger, would you?
See you, man.
I'll give it a shot, brother.
Take it easy.
Hey, and by the way, our welfare check tomorrow at 5, but I like that. Putting a welfare check Diesel on Shadow.
See, that's the thing about Mongo is number one, Mongo like candy. Number two, Mongo really just wants to make sure Shadow of Death Valley is okay so that he can smack him around a little bit more.
He said, the best line I've ever heard, as sure as I'm eating a Christmas tree cake while I still have my Halloween decorations in my yard. That's classic, man. That is classic. Yes.
Promo.
Absolutely. God, that's good.
Absolutely love it.
Diesel, we've got to get to Jack Veltri, but we can agree. We didn't agree on our Halloween candy last week. We can't agree Christmas tree cakes.
Delicious.
Oh, they're
delicious.
So good. I mean, I don't know why I got stuck on that, but I hadn't had one this year. I don't know if I've had one since like last Christmas. We need a stack of. No, we don't either. That's not a good idea.
No, we don't.
That's not
Look
a good
at
idea.
us.
I
No,
know. Look at me. I got to lose some. I love Christmas tree cakes, though. When is
that jacket was baggier last time you were wearing it?
It was way baggier. It's tight now, like really, really tight. I mean, it's tight. I've got to drop some lbs. Let me ask you this: before we run, when is the appropriate time? By the way, I don't know if you noticed, it's dark outside.
Sucks.
When is the appropriate time now that it's dark outside to start? I'm going to say it softly. Christmas music and decorating for Christmas, because I don't want a lot of people to get mad.
You can't.
Is it too early?
You can't put up Christmas tree decorations until the day after Thanksgiving.
See, that's the way I always thought too. That was my mentality. So it's too early right now.
It's too early. Revel in the moment. I told my wife the other day, Ashley, I told her, look, the problem with Thanksgiving is, number one, the corporations are winning. They're teaching you that as soon as Halloween is over, you got to start spending your money on Christmas trees, Santas. There's this like really creepy ass Buddy the Elf stand up thing that they have at Home Depot. You walk in there, it looks kind of like him, but it also looks like it looks like Buddy the Elf's been laying face down in the snow for 3 or 4 days, and his face just a little messed up, man. It's creepy as hell. But no, the problem is we don't have any good Thanksgiving songs, right? We got great Halloween songs, Monster Mash and all that stuff, right? You got fantastic Christmas music. Mariah Carey, she's a national treasure. But we don't have any Thanksgiving music, right? We don't have any songs about sitting around the table carving up the turkey for Thanksgiving.
We need some,
and that is a tragedy, right? We need a single about stuffing.
Speaking of the statue or whatever you called it in the Lowe's the other day. I know you're not a Theo Von fan, but have you heard him on the Cat Williams Christmas statue? Have you heard that yet?
No, I haven't.
You're missing out. I'll tell you, or I'll show it to you during the break, but it's probably the funniest clip you'll ever see in your life. I know we got to run because we have Jack Veltri. Diesel, we've talked Clemson.
That's what it looks like. This is what the Buddy the Elf available for purchase inside of Home Depot looks like. It's creepy.
Now you've got me on my. That's
creepy, dude.
Okay, so Theo Vaughn said he went and got a Cat Williams. He was very proud of it. This is what he said he got. Doesn't it look like him?
Theo,
it does. It does look like Cat
bro.
Williams. All right, we've got to run. We got to get back to sports. I don't know how we got down that rabbit trail, but Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central next. Wire to Wire, talking Gamecock football. We've talked South Carolina football already. We've talked Clemson football. Still getting your thoughts on what happened over the weekend. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. We bring in Jack Veltri now of Gamecock Central, good friend of the show, to talk a little Gamecock football. Jack, so much to get into from South Carolina's big win. But first, man, let's just talk about the scene of the crime, if you will, the crime on the Aggies. Just an incredible scene from what we could tell on Saturday night in Williams-Brice, especially after the field storming. Just one of those special nights, it seemed, for the Gamecocks, and getting the win obviously was the added bonus.
Yeah, fellas, it was a crazy, crazy night at Williams-Brice Stadium. There's something to be said about how electric and how tough it is for any opponent to come into that stadium and play South Carolina, especially at night. And it was just one of those games where everything kind of just clicked for South Carolina, and you saw it in the results. I mean, look, this was a 20-20 game at halftime, and then South Carolina outscored the Aggies 24-0 the rest of the way. And you get the results you did, and then the field storming and stuff. It wasn't surprising that they stormed the field, the fans that is, and they deserve it, because this has been kind of a year where you've been good, but not good enough to win these big games. But you finally get over the hump and get that one you've desperately been needing.
You know, Jack, you can look at the SEC fine structure, $100K for the first incident, which happened, I believe it was a basketball court storming. That counts earlier this year. You had the $250,000 fine levied for this one. After this, it goes up to $500,000. What kind of safeguards are the university going to be putting in place if they keep, winning big games like this? Because eventually $500,000 starts to become real money.
Yeah, and here's the thing about it I kind of learned yesterday is that, the money does not go to the SEC, and it doesn't go to like charity or anything like that. It goes South Carolina is going to be paying Texas A&M $250K. So obviously the Aggies probably don't need that money, because let's face it, you're in Texas with all that NIL stuff, but it's more money in their pockets. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do moving forward. I think it just comes down to South Carolina needing to probably be, it's not knocking them, but being better, like one of those teams where it's like, Alabama doesn't storm the field or anything after big wins. So I think if South Carolina gets up to that level, they won't have to even worry about doing this anymore. But I'm not sure exactly. More security, maybe more rails. I really don't know. The hedges were not enough to stop these fans from storming the field.
We're talking to Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central, 44-20 win for the South Carolina Gamecocks. You mentioned it. They've gotten close in past games, Jack, but in your mind, from what you saw on Saturday night, what was it that allowed this Gamecock team to finish and get the win compared to other games this year where they came so close?
I think it's a combination of three things. Number one, the defense continues to play fantastic this season. Whatever adjustments they made at halftime clearly worked, and they didn't have to make a ton. But, you gave 20 points in the first half, and this was a tight game with A&M kind of doing a little bit of what they wanted, moving the ball down the field. And then in the second half, you shut them out and kind of slow down their run game, slow down Marcel Reed. So that's number one. Number two, the offense was much better in this game. You have over 500 yards. You should be winning football games 99% of the time. And the run game was fantastic. Lenore Sellers continues to look really sharp. And then the last thing I would say is the penalties. South Carolina is probably one of the more penalized teams in college football this season. It's ended up costing them in some games, LSU mainly. And in this game, you only have 3 penalties. It's A&M instead that's making the mistakes and having 7 penalties and other, missed tackles, all these things. So I think the fact that you were able to limit your mistakes in this game is kind of something that obviously hurt them in the LSU and Alabama game. This time, it was the Aggies that were getting bit by that sort of bug.
Jack, can you give us any update on Mazio Bennett's condition? I mean, I know he wasn't carried off the field by any means, but man, that was kind of a nasty hit that he took. His head kind of got twisted sideways. He kind of got bent over like a paper clip, and kind of a non-factor after that point. Not that they really needed him to be down the stretch. I mean, they had phenomenal play elsewhere, But any updates on Mazio?
Yeah, unfortunately, not a ton to share just because, when we spoke to Shane Beamer on the teleconference yesterday, the only real update is that, it didn't look good on the field when Shane was watching the play develop, and then it didn't look good on tape. So I have a feeling we'll see what happens when the availability report comes out on Wednesday, but I don't know. It feels like we haven't got a ton on Mazio yet, but all I could say is from what I saw in the game, I mean, look, the play that went down was kind of just outright ridiculous, and stuff like that shouldn't be happening. And, Mazio had to be helped off the field with, the pair of trainers helping him walk off to the locker room. So obviously it's not good. And then the fact that he didn't return at all is not good either. But I don't know what his status will end up being this weekend, but we'll obviously have a lot more info on that come Wednesday.
Jack, when the season started, I remember talking about Lenora Sellers and the way that, the offensive coordinator, Dowell Loggins, was asking him to run the football so many times. But, fast forward all the way until the 4th of November today, Saturday, 15 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown, plus what Rocket Sanders did, which was absolutely phenomenal. Does it feel like to you, not asking Lenoris to do a ton through the air, that the sole identity of this football team is just to ground and pound? And again, you mentioned turnovers, ground and pound as long as your quarterback doesn't turn the football over.
Yeah, and look, I think ground and pound is it has to be the identity of this team because, look, the passing game it was better on Saturday, but it's still very much a work in progress. But when you get a guy like Rocket Sanders out of the transfer portal and Oscar Attaway, and you have a mobile quarterback like Lenore Sellish, you want to be able to use the run game to your advantage. And so it was definitely good to see South Carolina running the football effectively on Saturday. Now, moving forward, will that continue to be the case? I think it probably would be. Look, the passing game is take out what Josh Simon did, and there really wasn't a ton in the passing game. Like, Rocket was pretty good in the passing game, catching all of his passes. But overall, man, I think this identity is the run, and if it gets stopped, that makes things a little bit tougher. But I think they have a lot of good opportunities here against the competition they're playing over the next 4 weeks to really elevate this offense and start generating some momentum, because this is just one game, but it can become a string of games where you see this offense kind of playing up to the standard that the defense has been playing.
Talking to Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central, right here on the Fan Upstate, Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Jack, in the past, how has Shane Beamer used these big tentpole wins like this? I'm thinking back 2 years ago to the Tennessee and the Clemson wins. He's had other big wins in his tenure. How does he specifically use wins like this in recruiting?
Yeah, in recruiting, I mean, look, he talked about it yesterday. He had, I think he said about 9 guys on official visits on Saturday, and the response he's been getting from everyone has been fantastic, right? And as you would expect after a 24-point win. But I mean, even the guys that weren't on official visits, maybe they were on unofficial visits, or maybe it was guys that are being recruited, but they just weren't at this game. There was such positive feedback. And look, he's already got 1 commit today, it would seem, for the class of 2025, which is great. And I think it's to be expected. I mean, this is a huge win for South Carolina. And I get that question all the time from whether it's fans, other people, about just, how big would a win like this, what does that do for recruiting? It does everything. Like, if you lose a game like this, it hurts. It doesn't kill everything, but it makes things so much better when you're able to prove that you can go out here and win one of these big games. And it's like the momentum has been there all year in terms of recruiting, even when they lost these close games. But this is the real moment where it's like, maybe this is the turn of the tide where things are finally starting to go in South Carolina's favor to maybe where they own the state in terms of recruiting in other regions.
Jack, Shane Beamer earlier today was talking on our station with Jim Rome about the progression of Lenora Sellers. I found it very interesting when he brought up the injuries, and, a very fair point by Shane Beamer with the amount of injuries that Lenora Sellers went through in the beginning of the season. He really didn't get into a rhythm, and he also didn't have time to grow and get better. When you watch his play specifically, what do you think he's doing different that allows him to elevate his game to the next level like you saw on Saturday night?
I think he is taking better care of the football, for one. This was the second straight game where he didn't have a turnover at all on his end. Obviously, South Carolina had one in the game. That was a Rocket Sanders fumble. But other than that, nothing on Sellers' end. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that they've been trying to take care of the football with him, and whether it's Dowell and Shane Beamer, and you see Sellers go out there and do that. And I think also he's trusting his receivers more, it seems like, right? Like, he's finding his targets. First game of the year, I know it's so long ago, but those early weeks of the season, you saw him kind of relying on himself and his legs to make a play happen. And he kind of still is to some extent, but he's a lot more thoughtful with what he's doing. And he's, hitting his targets. Like, I think of when he throws short to Rocket Sanders or dumps off to Josh Simon. He's allowing other guys to go out there and make the plays. He's just got to hit them, which of course he has. And then, he's trusting his legs. Like, whenever, like, the way he's just able to break out of the pocket and break out of the sack, like, especially on Saturday, it was very impressive. The way he's able to move around is a nightmare matchup for any defense. And look, this is only his 7th start of the year. Like, he's potentially got 2 more years to go after this. I feel bad for what defenses are going to have to deal with as long as he keeps playing at this type of level.
Jack, we're only a few days away from South Carolina facing another, great story in college football this year. What Vanderbilt has been able to do in a transition time for that program. Look at it from a 10,000-foot view. Take the garnet glasses off here for just a moment. The winner of next Saturday's game, South Carolina at Vanderbilt, which is a better story in the national media?
I mean, if I'm being quite honest, I think Vanderbilt is probably the better story, just because nobody expected them to do anything. And look, that's not knocking them. It's facts that Vanderbilt is the better story right now, because no one expected this. Like, could you have told me if you had told me they got to 6 wins this year, I'd be like, okay, it's not out of the question. But the fact they got to 6 wins in the first week of November is kind of crazy to me. And so obviously they're the better story. And if Vanderbilt continues to win, I mean, shoot, we could be talking about a Vanderbilt team that wins 10 games potentially this year. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But look, at the same time, South Carolina is also a good story. They, a lot of people probably didn't have them getting potentially to a bowl game this year, or maybe even having a chance to win 7, 8, 9 games. But obviously, without question, Vanderbilt is the better story.
Jack, I don't know what conversation, inside the program from the coaching staff, what conversation's been had about the past, like this season at South Carolina, or if they've kind of just turned the page completely. The reason I'm asking is, what South Carolina did Saturday was absolutely incredible. The win on the road at Oklahoma was incredible. However, if I were a Gamecock fan sitting here today, as elated as I would be after what I saw Saturday, there would also be part of me, Jack, that is very disappointed in how close those other 2 games went, and this Gamecocks lost both of those, because at the end of the day, this could be a 7-1 football team, top 10 in the country. Opportunity missed. You just never know if those opportunities will come back year after year. So, tell me if I'm wrong there, if I were a Gamecock fan and having that feeling.
No, you're totally right, man. I honestly, I can't believe people, as much as I've seen it, people talking about this team potentially making the playoffs. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? Probably not. I just don't think 9-3 is going to cut it, just even with the wins they have this season. And, if they do end up going 9-3, you're seeing a little bit of it now where people are talking about, man, like, what if, man, the LSU game, the Alabama game, I've seen some of it today, actually. But, I mean, if they get to 9-3 by season's end, like, they go out there and win the rest of their games this month, including Clemson, then I think you see a lot of people talking about, man, like, we're going to get left out of the playoffs just because we lost these games to Alabama and LSU. So, it's obviously going to come up. If South Carolina goes 8-4 or whatever, then the controversy kind of dies down a little bit. But I guess you can kind of look at it, like, negatively, like, man, we should have won those games. You can also look at it like, hey, this is a team that went 5-7 last year, had a lot of issues, and was able to get to 9-3 within a year. And they were also able to nearly knock off 2 of the best teams, 2 of the blue blood football programs in college football. So I think you use it as motivation to move forward. And maybe next year, you have the same schedule pretty much in conference play, it's just flipped. Maybe next year is the year where you actually go and turn some of these losses that you had into monumental and even bigger wins.
Jack, what was your immediate reaction to South Carolina jumping from 1 to 58 votes in the AP poll, being still second in the others receiving votes, behind Missouri, behind Louisville, behind Vanderbilt?
I thought for a moment maybe this team would get ranked, and the more I think about it, they would have needed 114 votes to get to where the 25th ranked team Louisville is right now. That's a lot to ask for. And look, I think it would have been unrealistic to see South Carolina jump up into the rankings over some teams, but I think 58 votes is a good start. And if they beat Vanderbilt this weekend, who, mind you, is ranked 24, then I think you see South Carolina get ranked. But I think it's also probably just for the better that they aren't ranked right now. Like, the last thing you want is, as if this win wasn't big enough, you don't want that to get to the heads, plus having a ranking next to the name. I think they could handle it just fine. But the last thing you want is to go out here and lay an egg this weekend against a team that, a lot of people think you should be able to beat, even with Vanderbilt's story that they've had this year.
Jack, fantastic stuff, man. Look, I'm kind of agree with you. It is even a few South Carolina fans mentioned that to me over the weekend of, man, a really high win. Just hope you don't follow it up with a loss, to Vandy, even though it's a good Vandy team. Always appreciate you hopping on with us, Jack.
Yeah, no, appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central. Diesel, that's great. A fascinating point he had there about maybe it's better off that they're not ranked. I hadn't thought about that until Jack said that.
Yeah, there's such a thing as getting high on your own supply.
Sure.
Feeling yourself just a little bit too much. And he brings up, it's a great point. I mean, I've seen a lot of teams, Cole, make their season debut in the AP top 25 and then boom, get beat. You get there, you're striving for all of this. It feels like you've achieved something when you're in 25th place. And then, bam, disappointing loss to follow that up. So, I would love to be a fly on the wall in that locker room this weekend to see what Shane Beamer is saying to this team to keep them focused. I mean, I've seen coaches lay literal rat traps around the football building to say, hey, don't get caught in a rat trap. Don't get caught by the rat poison. All this stuff is just distractions to keep you from being focused on the opponent in front of you. So Shane Beamer's got a really big task in front of him. I'm impressed with the way he coached this team up to get them ready to go out and perform the way they did against Texas A&M. But I think an equally difficult coaching job is going to be keeping this team focused and going into Vanderbilt.
And the last thing I'll say, Diesel, before we run to a break, I do get Jack's point. However, I still do think South Carolina should be ranked. As of today, I really do. I believe that.
I mean, you beat a top 15 team. You beat the number 11 team in the country, Texas A&M, at your place, prime time, night game in front of the world. Yeah, they should be ranked. I mean, it's this South Carolina team, and we're going to find out 2 weeks from now. But this South Carolina team, the way they played last night, should run the table.
Sure.
Over the last 4 weeks of this season. I said last night, I tweeted out over the weekend that if this South Carolina team plays this Clemson team, they're going to beat them by 24.
Yeah. It won't be pretty. It won't be pretty. But really good stuff with Jack, as always.
We appreciate Jack's time. And as always, make sure you look him up on social media as Jack Veltri and at Gamecock Central. When we come back, Cole, let's do this. Let's look at the rookie class for 2024. The rookies in I know Madcraft is blind because he thinks after looking at the Dwayne Wade statue more and more that it actually looks like Dwayne Wade.
You can look at it all you want. It doesn't look like
It
him.
looks more like Wade Boggs than it does Dwayne Wade.
That's bad.
Hell
Really
yeah.
bad.
Talking about Madcraft. Let's go to the phone lines real quick. We got just about 60 seconds apiece for these two callers. Let's go to Harold on the line first. Harold, did you hit in your upset pick this weekend? How you feeling in the challenge, my friend?
Yeah, I hit the upset pick with Texas A&M. I made the last on Friday with Diesel. But listen, I hope I can brighten your day a little bit. You called an A-plus game against Bowling Springs Friday night. There wasn't one time I didn't know where the ball was. If I had the power right now, I would take you, even though you're a Clemson fan, I believe you'd accept it. I would take you over Todd Ellis any day.
Oh, my God.
Harold, appreciate you listening. And every time there was a yard on the field that needed to be called, I thought of you.
Well, I just wondered about, listen, you were great. You were great. And I ain't going to ever say a negative thing about your blog. And I know you got one more coming up in the playoffs.
Yes, sir.
So I'll be listening to that.
I appreciate you, Harold. That's great.
I ain't going to have anything negative to say about you till tomorrow. I promise you that.
I'm replacing Todd Ellis, evidently.
All right, let's go to the phone lines again. Let's go to Tom in Somerville. Tom, howdy.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
I just want y'all to know I did, in fact, shake my Laffy Taffy in the parking lot at the fairgrounds Saturday night, and I may have broke my hip, but I don't care because the Gamecocks won, and I spent all day Sunday on the couch rewatching that Clemson game from start to finish, and that was almost just as fun as the South Carolina game.
Spoken like a true Gamecock fan.
Hey, any true Gamecock fan will tell you this. A&M's done with, and you better be ready when you go to Nashville. I ain't going to Nashville because the last two times I went to a football game when we played Vanderbilt was 2007, and we were number 6 and we lost. And the following year, I drove up to Nashville on the opening Thursday night to start the year, and we lost. And we haven't lost to them since. So I don't go to the Gamecocks games against Vanderbilt because every time I do, we lose. So I'm going to stay at home. But we better be ready because that Vanderbilt team can beat you in the butt if you're not ready.
Well, Tom, if South Carolina gets it done on the road at Vanderbilt and you were not there, we're going to give you all the credit in the world. That's right. South Carolina's luck and skill and ability flows through you.
Tom, you're the man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, we hadn't lost to them since 08, and I haven't been since 08. So
smart man.
Keep it going.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh, God. Speaking of Gamecocks, Diesel, for the new audience, at 6 o'clock, those that work late, just now getting off work, we'll dive back into South Carolina next. South Carolina Diesel, we've talked about them a good bit today. We'll continue to do so here in hour number 4 of the program. We know we have a brand new audience. They say like every 20 minutes, but 6 o'clock, those just now getting off of work. We appreciate you being a Tolo. That stands for Turn It On, Leave It On. That's what you are, the listeners. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. This is Wire to Wire.
They say your average your radio listener has an attention span of a mosquito, but not our Tolos.
Not
our listeners. They operate on a different wavelength.
That's right.
From everyone else. They listen for 4 hours a day, every day. And when we're not on the air, they're thinking about us. They're tweeting at us. They're retweeting us. Our Tolos are great. Being a Tolo is 24/7 job.
No doubt. It really is. It really is. Speaking of being a 24/7 job, being Diesel in the SEC, we've learned is a 24/7 job, but doing that job pretty well this season in 2024 is Shane Beamer. You and I have talked about it a lot already today. We'll continue to do so tomorrow and the rest of the week as South Carolina has another big one. But, I think the overall consensus is now that you and I have talked about it. We've heard a lot from the Tolos out there, including South Carolina Gamecock fans. This is not fool's gold, right? This is not South Carolina sneaking up on an opponent, having a average season Diesel, and all of a sudden, snatching A&M. This is not fool's gold what we're looking at. This is a really good team, led by Shane Beamer, who has, in my opinion, a really, really good defensive coordinator in Clayton White. We'll see. Jury's still out on Dow Loggins. But we've seen this really good team continue to get better and better all year long, and it seems as if they grew up before the Gamecock fans' eyes, Diesel, on Saturday night. And Lenore Sellers showed that, he's the man for the job. There's no questioning that. Plus, Rocket Sanders, phenomenal on Saturday. So overall consensus, no fool's gold here. This South Carolina team, Diesel, they're 100% legit.
Yeah, we learned this weekend, Cole, that this South Carolina defense is consistently very, very good. I mean, they had the hiccup against Ole Miss where they gave up a whole bunch of points, and the offense didn't help them out at all in that game. But you can now count on the defense to play really good football. And now it seems you can kind of sort of start trusting the offense just a little bit. Yeah. And that's been the biggest problem is the offense couldn't get off the field fast enough a lot of times. They would go 3 and out on their opening drives and not be able to get anything going. And it's finally to a point where the mistakes are being minimized, where the drops are being minimized, where the fumbles are being minimized, where the quarterback's not putting the ball on the turf, not putting the ball in the other team's hands. I mean, you're right. We saw this offense grow up and match what the defense is able to do. And if they can get 75% of that performance, they're going to beat Vandy next week.
Sure.
Easy.
Lefty Tiger chimes in on the text line 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Lefty Tiger says, Tom should be blocked. He's giving Carolina fans a worse image. Still our state. Will always be our state. Tiger Nation will overcome. And let me click on the text. Oh, man, I can't find it.
And Carolina will get beat by the Citadel next year.
Perfect. Appreciate it.
Lefty Tiger says, take my name out of the reason for this question. But do you two seriously think the Sister Kissers are going to keep this up?
You didn't keep his name out.
I just don't see it continuing as the new normal.
He said, I don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't understand what that question means.
Take my name out of the reason for this question.
How about call in Lefty Tiger and ask it on air? That way we can
get confused about what you mean.
844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. Diesel, you said it. We've been talking about it all season. South Carolina, in order to get over the hump, why couldn't they finish against LSU? Why couldn't they finish against Alabama? Well, Lenore Sellers, who didn't have a lot of experience, who was battling some injuries early in the season, he put the ball on the ground, as you said, little turnover happy with his interceptions, and South Carolina was really penalized. Let's call it like it is here, Diesel. If you go back to the LSU game, if you take away the penalties in that game, South Carolina beats LSU. If you take away the turnovers in the Alabama game, South Carolina beats Alabama. So, you talk about penalties and turnovers, and you really can't emphasize them enough in terms of just how much those are a game breaker. You eliminate turnovers and penalties, and guess what? You're beating the crap out of Texas A&M. So that truly is the difference. And I know Shane Beamer talked about it after the game, Diesel. He and his team, he and his staff, everybody involved with the program kind of finally said, look, enough's enough. We know we're good enough, but in a lot of ways we're beating ourselves. We've got to come out. We've got to play well. They did. The question is, though, the season's not over, right? We can't just write them off and say congratulations and go on your way. You said it. They still have Vandy. They still have Missouri. They have Wofford. We know it's going to be Wofford, right? They have They have Clemson. 3 teams that are good football teams, Diesel. But from what we've seen, you and I should believe that South Carolina has a chance in all 3 of those last 3 or 4 games, not including Wofford.
Yeah, they absolutely have a chance in those games. I would, I'm going to go quickly here and look at the South Carolina schedule and see, are they favored in the Missouri game by the models? As of right now, the model has South Carolina with a 65.5% chance to win that football game against Missouri. It gives them a 59% chance to win on the road at Vanderbilt. And it gives them a 39%. So a 40% chance to beat Clemson on the road at Clemson. This team is poised, Cole. I wouldn't be shocked if they ran the table down the stretch. I'm not calling for it at this point because, again,
it's a big ask.
We saw this team mature, and they matured for 1 game. Is that the new norm? Don't know, right? We just don't know. This team had played such inconsistent football over the course of the season. Maybe they matured in that bye week between Alabama and Oklahoma, because think about that. They won at Oklahoma 35-9. They handled Texas A&M, really just shut them down in the second half and kind of blew the doors off of it late. Maybe something clicked in that off week that we are not entirely privy to. Well, I guess we'll find out against Vanderbilt. Can this plucky upstart of South Carolina Gamecocks get it done against the team that has the story behind them, that has the quarterback that everybody's rooting for, Diego Pavia? Everybody wants that guy to go and, do big things. And so it's going to be really exciting to watch.
Sure.
Can South Carolina, if they can do it 3 weeks in a row, and you look at the difference between those 2 Oklahoma and A&M games. South Carolina had no offense in the Oklahoma game.
Yeah.
They scored 21 points early off turnovers in the first half. And after that, it was over. Oklahoma couldn't get off the mat. But it was a completely different game offensively from the game they played against Texas A&M. Defense phenomenal again, as it has been multiple times throughout this season.
Texter from the 903 chimes in and says, I just hope Clemson fans enjoy watching my Mustangs in the ACC title game. You can watch our highlights at Louisville on YouTube if you want to see how to beat them. That's great. And by the way, that's our listener up in or down in Dallas that texted in a few weeks ago from the 903. SMU fan, tell us we don't have any SMU fans that are listening, Diesel. We're
all over the place.
I'm telling you, man. Tom Somerville, 903 in Dallas, Dallas, North Carolina.
We got Brother Contreras up in Queens. It's not in Queens, New York. Brother Contreras, remind us what borough you're listening to the show from.
You know my memory. Don't
you're
don't ask me. You're asking the wrong guy.
I think I remember him saying he's listening to us from the Bronx.
I
think he was listening from the Bronx.
I know we had somebody. I can't remember if it was Brother Contreras or not, but yeah, you're right. I do remember that being one of the Tolos.
I know that Brother Contreras is excited for the start of basketball season. And speaking of basketball, we have Furman basketball coverage starting at 6:30 right here. So we got about 20 minutes left of the show. And then we make way to Dan Scott and the crew, and they'll have Furman basketball.
Before we run to a break here in about 5 minutes, interesting point about basketball. I do find it fun when you talk about the 2024-5 season, Diesel, with our in-state teams. Look, South Carolina, they're coming off of a really good year where they exceeded expectations by a mile, right? Lamont Paris, what he's done with that program, they've been exceptional. They really have. And South Carolina's roster in 2024, they're good. They're going to be good this year. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. On the other hand, Clemson made the Elite Eight. How far can they go? Brownell has some talent, some transfers. I really do believe, Diesel, at some point this year, you could see both teams in the top 25.
If only Cole, Lamont Paris had been hired 10 years ago, before the SEC really came on, right? Before they really started investing all that football money into getting the bigger and better facilities, bigger and better coaches in the SEC, because now the SEC is stacked top to bottom in basketball. Alabama, Auburn, Texas, Kentucky, Arkansas, I would assume will be a lot better this year. Mm-hmm. South Carolina is very good. Tennessee is very good. So you kind of waited just a little bit too long to pop on the basketball side of things, because now you're going to be swimming through that raging stream trying to get up there to the tippy top of the SEC. Whereas if you'd done it 10 years ago, it'd have been you and Kentucky and everybody else.
Well, I just think they have the guys. I really do. I mean, when you look at them getting Nick Pringle from Alabama, right? Somebody that had a really good year, very big get. Nick Pringle could be really big for that team. And we know what Cam Scott has, like 6'6" guard, a true freshman, Colin Murray-Boyles. There's a lot of talent on this team. Look, if they have the depth after the starting five to compete, this is going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun. Not to mention they have Austin Hero on their roster, Diesel, who is a redshirt freshman, brother of Tyler Hero that plays for the Miami Heat. So a little NBA flavor in terms of the brother of Tyler Austin down in Columbia. He's again, redshirt freshman. But both sides, I think Clemson, South Carolina. And again, Furman, you mentioned it. We carry Furman right here on the Fan Upstate. There's a lot of good college basketball in the state, man, all the way down to the coast. It's going to be a lot of fun. I am a big fan of Lamont Paris. I know, there's a lot of people who have not been pleased with Brad Brownell and the job he's done. We know what Brad Brownell has to do. He went to the Elite Eight last year. You've got to show some form of consistency now, right? Like you have to show that last year wasn't a fluke.
Especially in a down ACC. Especially as that it's Duke and North Carolina and everybody else, right? So this is your opportunity, Clemson. Just the flip side of that coin that we were just talking about with South Carolina. This is your opportunity in a weakened ACC.
They're down, but I still think these rankings now, I agree with you.
It'll take time, right? Yeah. I mean, and college basketball rankings are so fluid because you got games being played literally all the time. So
almost every day.
We don't know what these teams are going to be until they're 15 to 20 games into the season, right? And then we'll find out. But hey, as difficult as the SEC has gotten on paper, at least on paper, the ACC has weakened considerably. I mean, Wake Forest is not what they once were. Syracuse is not what they once were. NC State is not what they once were. Florida State is not what they have been occasionally over the years. So it's going to be fascinating to watch, Cole.
And quickly, by the way, I'm sorry, Clemson hosts Charleston Southern tonight, and South Carolina hosts North Florida, both games starting in 45 minutes.
If you want to watch a good basketball game, you might as well tune in to watch the South Carolina women. They play Michigan tonight in Las Vegas.
Man, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being there for that? That'd be so fun. Don Staley, are you kidding me?
Quickly, Cole, do you believe that fans who threw garbage, if they use AI, if they use camera footage, all that stuff, should they be trying to find the people who threw trash and ban them from the stadium, revoke whatever passes or IPTAY memberships or whatever they've got, right?
Well,
the way that Texas did.
Every action has a consequence, right? Good or bad. I've learned that. Everybody has learned that at some point in their life. How do you view it if you're Clemson? How do you view that? I don't think it's a bad thing. Like if you told me we can do it very quickly and it doesn't take long and it's an easy process, I'm not against it. I can tell you that. I think that, again, by the way, look how hard it's raining when they switch to that other camera in Tampa Bay for the night's Bucks-Chiefs game, or is that in Kansas City? I think it is when they showed the other camera.
In Kansas City.
Diesel, it is pouring rain in Kansas City, so that should be a good one tonight. No, I don't have a problem.
Clemson has 2 home games left, Cole. They got the Citadel and they've got South Carolina. You know what they're going to do because it's Clemson? They'll say, hey, we're going to find you and we're going to ban you for the Citadel game because we don't want to be banning our fans for the biggest home game of the year, right?
Yeah.
So,
and by the way, quick basketball update here locally. Wofford does lead Erskine right now 70-33. That game started at 5. There is a lot of college basketball going on right now. As you just said, Furman will begin here in 15 minutes, right? 15
minutes, yeah, as the coverage from Dan Scott will begin.
Your App State Mountaineers tonight.
Yeah, I don't even know who
Miami of Ohio in 15 minutes.
Miami of Ohio. The Moons over Miami of Ohio.
You don't know their mascot.
Red Hawks?
Swoop the Red Hawk.
Is it the Red Hawks?
It's the Red Hawks.
Yeah.
You did good. You did really good.
I'm good at small school mascots.
You are a mascot maniac. All right, Diesel, this is something that's really intriguing that you and I have not gotten to yet. Yesterday, Panthers game, right? I'm sure you've heard about it already, Tolos. It was a pretty bad injury with Chris Olave. A lot of people, including our morning host on this station, are saying that it's Derek Carr's fault. Chris Olave got injured yesterday on that attempted catch. He got called out by a former Saints by it. We'll get your thoughts, Diesel. I want to hear what you have to say about this. This is fascinating next.
It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson as we're just a few minutes away from handing things off. Sorry, bad analogy for football. Bounce passing it to Dan Scott, Furman Athletics. He's going to be calling Furman basketball from the well tonight.
Basketball is my favorite
exactly.
sport. I like the way you dribble
chest
up and
passing,
down.
okay? Like the bounce pass is a lost art. Chest passing, lobbing, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, Cole, you have an issue with something that Rob Brown said on his show this morning.
Well,
regarding Derek Carr and Chris Olave, please explain.
I just want to know, like, what the Tolos, and we can get back into this again tomorrow, but Derek Carr threw a pass to Chris Olave, right? He got injured. Football is a game where you get injured, right? It's very hard for me to say, yep, that was 100% on Derek Carr. I don't know. Obviously, I was there. I saw the injury. The stretcher came out. It took a long time. Anytime something like that happens, Diesel, it's scary. But here is Derek Carr's response after Michael Thomas, a former player, called him out.
See that or hear that from a former teammate? I know, what is your reaction?
I have love for Mike, and when he does that, I don't really care for it, obviously. I've had so many teammates over the years, and he's like the one dude that didn't get along with me, and I don't know what I did to him. I don't know why he feels that way. I'm sorry, for whatever he's dealing with to make him feel like he's got to do that. I don't know, but he's never called me during any of this, my phone number has never changed. I've in fact called him on different occasions, just to try. And sometimes you can try as hard as you want. And it just doesn't work out, and that's okay.
Wow. That's an intriguing response. For whatever reason, Michael Thomas, the former Saints, had beef with Derek Carr, right? But Diesel, seeing the play, I understand that you can say it's Derek Carr's fault. But I don't know that a quarterback who makes bad throws, I don't know that he's doing it on purpose, so maybe it wasn't the best throw. But it's football. People get hurt.
And not every throw goes exactly automatically where you want it to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Derek Carr wishes he had thrown that ball 4 feet lower than he did. He just throws that ball 4 feet lower. It's first down, right? It's a wide open catch. Problem is he sailed it just a little bit and got his player hurt.
Furman basketball next, right here on the Fan Upstate.